episode 40 of Last Turn. I'm Bart, and I'm here with Evan. How's it going?
It's you want to blow something up? That's how it's going. I want to blow things up. That's really all I can think about right now.
I mean,
I'm a
episode
complete
40.
arsonist.
That is that's don't say that too loud. Don't say that in recorded medium. That could really come back to bite you in the ass like 20 years from now.
I think that's the best way to say it.
That's fair. I mean, if you don't plan on it's a good counterpoint. If you don't plan on committing any arson, then that's like a great way to say it. But if you plan on committing arson or you don't want to like roll that out, then you made a mistake.
I'm just gonna never do. Oh wow, they already heard.
Yeah. See, do you hear that?
Oh my god,
dude!
The Big Brother's always watching. No, I'm just never gonna do what I say I'm going to do. I'll just always not do what I say I'm gonna do. So if there's a recording of me saying that I will do that, then that's actually evidence I won't.
There's like a logic puzzle if I say something like, "This man always tells the truth," and you say like, "This man always lies," or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we end up in a weird situation.
It's like I think I've heard it been told with like there's two ogres. And if you ask one something, you can figure out. I can't remember it. We're so good at this.
Well, that's why we're reviewing Hearthstone cards today, not talking about logic puzzles.
Yeah.
So, as you alluded to, Boomsday has dropped already, so this is a slightly late set review. But we wanted to talk about some of the cards that we think are the most powerful. I don't think either of us have played very much, right?
No, it came out in the U.S. 26 hours and 4 minutes ago. And I started to open my packs last night, and then I got sleepy, and I didn't even finish opening my packs.
Oh, wow.
So I have not actually gotten to play with it at all. I saw like a few lists on Twitter that looked like garbage, and there's definitely nothing to them.
Nice. You wait till those show up in tournaments.
I saw. I guess we're gonna find out, but there was definitely like a screenshot of a Pogo Hopper Rogue playing against a Pogo Hopper Rogue, and I don't see that being something that's gonna happen very often in a few days.
So most likely a lot of the decks that we're seeing early on are gonna vanish. I think that's just common with new expansion experience. For what it's worth, I did get smacked for 15 by a Pogo Hopper yesterday. I did play a little bit.
Oh my, okay, well, that's really exciting, and I would love for that card to be good, and it like almost goes with Cavern of Souls.
It does. Caverns Below?
The Caverns Below, yeah.
I think you made that same mistake on a previous episode.
I have. This is just, every episode I talk about how much of an arsonist I am, and I make that confusion of a Magic card and a Hearthstone card.
Yeah, this is a common experience, both of these things. Yeah, I mean, I played pretty minimally yesterday. I've sort of been busy, but I did get some reps in with one of my favorite classes, Druid. So happy to talk about that when we get into it. But what do you say about just starting this off?
Yeah, we are going to give you beautiful, beautiful people a set review of the Boomsday project. We're not going to look at every card. We're each picking two cards that we think are going to be roughly the most impactful from each class. So each class will talk about somewhere between 2 and 4 cards. We don't have time for all of these, lame mechs. We want to talk about the good mechs. And speaking of mechs, neutral, we'll also talk about 5 cards each. And we do it in Blizzard order, which is also alphabetical order.
Yeah, it's called Blizzard. It's called Blizzard order now. That's like, every document that ever needs to be arranged alphabetically is now Blizzard ordered.
Yeah, and like preschools right now, they're like, "Have you learned your Blizzard order?"
yeah. I mean, the government's in the middle of trying to change over to it too. It's slow. Like in 20 years' time, we'll see it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Each instead of letters, there's just little class symbols.
Yeah, it's the new written language. I mean, the new written language is like emojis. It's like a new alphabet. Anyway, before we go down that road, so the first class up in Blizzard order is Druid. Druid is the best class in Hearthstone. They like trees. So, how about I start us off with the cards I think are the best?
Yes, please.
All of them. So,
yeah.
I had a hard time picking here because there's several cards that are just obviously really, really powerful here.
Hmm.
Or maybe not obviously powerful, but are under some circumstances really strong or enablers. So they got a lot. Um,
Yeah, I agree. Druid was one of the hardest, if not the hardest class to break down. One reason is because it also got like another mechanic essentially in addition to all the ones in addition to all the things it already does really well. It also got the Trent thing. So now there's this whole new druid style that you can play in addition to mechs. Like every class I guess got mech style, but druid also got tree style. So since that's a completely new mechanic for druid, that's tough to tell how good those cards are.
yeah, but even outside of those tree cards, there's a bunch of cards that just slot right into existing decks.
Also
Um,
that, yeah, so that's
yeah,
why this was a tough one to make firm decisions about.
for sure. So the first up on my list here for cards that I think are the most powerful and impactful, I have Biology Project.
Yes, that's also my first one.
I think it's hard to not pick this kind of card. So Druid has had since like Mean Streets, they've had this deck where you have a pretty strong top end, and you just shove in all the mana ramp cards you can and all the card draw spells that you can. Over time, the top end has gotten stronger with the release of Knights of the Frozen Throne. They got Ultimate Infestation, and they even got some more stuff to fill out the middle with these armor generating cards like Oaken Summons and Branching Paths.
Hmm.
So all of this just creates this incredible core of like 15 to 20 cards that ramp your mana, draw you cards, and give you immense survivability. And a
Sometimes
top,
sometimes all of those things in one card, right? Like Nourish, if you
yes,
need to ramp, it can be the ramp, or if you need to draw, it can be the draw. So like, it's not even that you have one card serving one purpose. Some of the cards actually play multiple roles.
yeah, like or Branching Paths
So
being another good example.
yes, that's one reason the deck is so friggin' consistent.
Yes, exactly. You pretty much like a lot of your cards do multiple things, so you have access to the effect you want when you need them, and it's tough to run through all of the survivability the class generates. But anyway, a lot of these cards are expensive, so they're like 4 to 10 mana, and Biology Project just helps you get there faster. So if your opponent is playing a fast deck where they want to leverage those 3 turns to get an advantage over you that you can't overcome, Biology Project just lets you completely skip over those turns.
Yeah, it takes away the early game kind of, which is often or not often, but an aggressive deck. That's where it's going to get an advantage, and it's going to use that advantage to win the game. So if you just take that part of the game out, its plan can completely fall through, especially if it can't properly take advantage of the mana. Um, and it's not empty. So I think we already forgot to read the card. Biology
Ah, yes.
Project is a one mana druid spell. It says each player gains 2 mana crystals. And this is one of 9 projects. Each class got a project that has a symmetrical effect. Um, and one cool thing about this is that your mana crystals are not empty. It doesn't say each player gains 2 empty mana crystals. So this one is actually in a very obvious way not symmetrical. The 2 mana crystals that your opponent gets, they can't use them immediately because it's not their turn. You can use the mana from this immediately. So
Yeah.
you actually, even though both players get something, you're getting it. You can use it first. Like you could turn one Biology Project Wild Growth. Uh, it sounds really gross.
Yeah.
I kind of like almost threw up in my mouth a little when I was trying to say it, but sadly that's probably going to happen a lot, and that's going to be strong.
Yeah, I mean, you could you could Biology Project Wild Growth and then Nourish the following turn. I don't know. There's just like a lot of sequences where it's really crazy, but this contributes to a whole lot of ramp really quickly. This gets you to your Ultimate Infestation faster. It gets you to Nourish faster. So a lot of the times playing Druid just feels like surviving until you can play Ultimate Infestation because once you do, the game turns around. This just makes that faster. Like in some matchups with some draws, this will be like multiple time walks. You're just taking away turns where your opponent can be attacking you before you're playing a ton of cards and starting to generate your value. It seems incredibly strong to me.
Yeah, Druid was already like it was pretty oppressive, I guess, how strong Ultimate Infestation is and how they can just commit. The point is they can commit all these cards to ramp because they draw 5 when they play UI, right? And this is exactly the biology project is exactly what you want if you're gonna spend a bunch of mana to refill your hand. It's just a way to get there faster, and this is like that on steroids. They definitely whoever made this card did research on how to make Druid better.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think that this card just fits into like a whole slew of decks that all have the same core, and because it works so well with that core, so expect to see this card a lot. Another card, I mean, it was hard to pick here,
Yeah.
but so I ended up going with Floop's Glorious Gloop.
Oh, what does that do?
So this is 1 mana legendary spell, so you can only run one in your deck. Whenever a minion dies this turn, gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. So this, I picked this because it's a unique effect, which is, I think that that's worth looking into a card when it has something unique and potentially powerful. This can generate a lot of mana. That's really good.
Yeah.
But also it fits into an existing deck. So Token Druid has been a force in the metagame, maybe not a top tier force, but definitely a viable deck that you could use to climb for the past couple months. And this card fits into that kind of deck really well. That deck runs a little bit less of an aggressive version of that core we were just talking about, but it still runs the mana ramp core of, Wild Growths, Nourish, and then Ultimate Infestation. Floop helps you get to different parts of those once you've established a little board control. It also allows you to play some of your go wide cards early, like your Whispering Wisps or whatever the 4 mana card is that summons a bunch of 1/1s.
I think it's Whispering Woods.
That was close.
Wait, how would you play that early with Floop's Glorious Gloop?
You can't play it early, but it incentivizes you to not hold it. Or it does not. This will allow you to play it on curve, as opposed to waiting until you have a full hand in Soul of the Forest or something like that.
Oh, so it's kind of like if you play Whispering Woods and then maybe buff them, give them +1/+1. You've invested 2 cards, and then if your opponent has a Hellfire or something, it's just awful. So you can Whispering Woods, and then if your stuff survives, then you can Floop's Glorious Gloop, trade a bunch of stuff, and get a ton of mana.
That's exactly right.
So
So yeah,
you could actually potentially, if your opponent doesn't have the answer, like UI on turn 5 or something, if you make 5/1/1s with Whispering Woods turn 4, and turn 5 you need 6 because the Gloop costs 1 mana.
yeah.
So if you made 6/1/1s and play the Gloop, you could UI turn 5 with this.
So it's yeah. I mean, it
That
seems
sounds good.
yeah. So it gives you a lot of options in that kind of deck where you're just making a lot of minions that are pretty expendable. So for that reason, I think it's strong. But again, it was a tough choice. Druid has a lot of really powerful cards here.
Yeah, it's that one. I did not pick it because I, for one, hadn't thought about how you could use it in Token Druid. It mostly just seems like since it doesn't give you a card, it kind of has to be in some kind of combo, and that combo is going to be weak to Skulking Geist. And I don't even know what that combo would be with Malagos. Like, how do you play an extra Malagos with this card, I guess, is how I was analyzing it. But yeah, just using it as a way to have a sick turn in Token Druid sounds great.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can afford to spend a card that doesn't give you a card if you're going to be playing UI.
Right, exactly. So Druid, that's kind of the problem here is that this doesn't refresh itself, but it will enable you to cast cards that do.
Yeah. Okay. So I had Biology Project, of course, and then my second pick is Phlebidnus Floop himself.
Oh, sure.
So this is a 4-mana 3/4 legendary. While in your hand, this is a 3/4 copy of the last minion you played. So it's a lot like a Faceless Manipulator to me. When you play a minion, you can immediately copy it, but it's 1 less mana. So that's actually a really big deal, I think. I think
Yeah.
the list of combos and the kind of combo-y stuff you can do definitely gets bigger when you start reducing the cost of key pieces. So that's and that's been a deck. The Malagos Druid and playing a Malagos and copying it with Faceless Manipulator has been a deck. But if you played Malagos and used the Twig of the World Tree to refresh your mana, I almost said memory. I forgot. I'll use this Twig. And then Manipulator, you would not have enough mana to Starfire. But with Floop, you would.
Yeah.
So that was one. That's one thing, But also, if you, it doesn't say the last minion you played this turn. So you
Right.
can play a minion, like you could play a turn 3 Vicious Fledgling, and then you could turn 4 play a 3/4 Vicious Fledgling.
Right.
Or a 3/4 Tar Creeper. Is that better? I guess not really. But like those things are all like pretty interesting. So it seems like even in a deck that's just using good cards, like it could be great. You could like slam your Malagos, and then if they kill it, just play a 4 mana Malagos next turn. You know, it's almost like you can do the Twig of the World Tree combo without the twig if you just wait a turn. You
Yeah.
can play the Malagos and then they'll answer it, and then next turn you can play a 4 mana Malagos and play Swipe and Moonfires. That seems really strong.
So it's nice because I mean in Malagos I think it's a clear include for those sorts of reasons. So first of all, it lets you actually do everything in one turn because you don't have to worry about having a ridiculous amount of mana or doing something stupid or having your Malagos survive a turn. You can play Malagos just whenever you can really, and then not play any other minions. And if your opponent doesn't have the answer, you just kill them. But if they do have the answer, then it's fine because you just fluke later. Um, I thought that this card was definitely on my list. I didn't pick it because I figured you would. Um,
You do that
so
sometimes. You're really good at it too.
I mean it's yeah, I don't know. This is a really good card, and I think it's clearly a good card. So there are kind of four principles that I was evaluating cards, or like when I was sort of picking out the ones that I liked, they sort of fell into four categories. If they fit an existing deck, which this does, if they're archetype makers or deep supporters, which this definitely is, it supports some kind of deck that wants to do something cheap or summon a copy of something. Is a unique effect. This is a copy effect, yeah, but it's a unique kind of copy effect, so
Hmm.
I think that counts. And flexibility. So is it useful in a lot of different situations, which you pointed out is. If you're just running good minions in your deck, then this is good.
I mean, your opponent could play a weapon, and then you could Acidic Swamp ooze it, and then they could play an even worse weapon, and then you could Flabidinous Floop it.
Right, and then they quit
Yeah, they
and
would
threaten you.
probably seppuku IRL.
Right.
They eat,
Um,
fold up a frisbee and eat it, and then let it unfold inside their body and kill
that's that sounds horrendous.
them.
It's like a frisbee taco, and then it just destroys your stomach. So with that note, let's move on to the next class, Hunter. How do you feel about that?
That's very appropriate. There were a bunch of other good druid cards that we didn't get to talk about, like 4 mana draw 4 cards didn't even
Oh
make
yeah,
the cut. So there's don't expect druid to diminish in popularity
yeah.
anytime
It's
soon.
expect another round of druid nerfs that's never happened before.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
might that that might happen again in like 20 days or something like that.
yeah, for like the 20th time in Hearthstone's history. Um, anyway, so let's talk about Hunter here. Why don't you let me know what cards you picked for this class? It's
I will.
a lot harder after Druid.
Yes, I will let you know. I'll let you know right now. I like Fireworks Tech. So this is a 2 mana 2/1 battle cry. Give a friendly mech +1/+1. If it has a death rattle, trigger it. So we've been seeing how great Death Rattle Hunter is. The fact that Death Rattle Hunter action is good is firmly established. And there's some cool mechs with Death Rattle. Like one of the cards I picked for neutral is Mecharoo, which is
Hmm.
a 1 mana 1/1 mech with Death Rattle summon a 1/1 mech. So you can turn one Mecharoo, turn two Fireworks Tech, and then you have a 2/1 and a 2/2 and a 1/1. And if they kill your 2/2, you get another 1/1. And so
Right.
that sounds very strong. For example, and that's a simple way to use it. You can also get tricky with magnetic. Like there's mechs that have magnetic and death rattle, so they'll give if you magnetize them to a mech that doesn't have a death rattle that's already out, it'll then have a death rattle. You can then trigger it with fireworks tech. So there seems to be some ways to use it. It's a 2 mana 2/1, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Mechanical Whelp in neutral, which is a mech, 6 mana 2/2 that summons a 7/7 Mechanical Dragon with this Death Rattle. So
Ooh, wow! I had forgotten about that one in Hunter. I was like looking at that in some other class like Priest or something like that. I forgot about the dragon. That would be really good.
yeah, I mean, you'd have access to potentially six effects that can trigger this, like with Play Dead, this mech, and then the Terror Scales. So that is potent. I mean, granted, this is going to be hard to stick for a turn, but between the 2 mana card that you're identifying right now and like Play Dead, it'd be pretty easy to just wait a turn or two and then get a 7/7.
Yeah, or I mean, like, is it hard to keep it around? I mean, you play a 6 mana 2/2, but if they kill it, you get a 7/7. Like,
That's a good point.
how many times is it like I'm gonna give them a 7/7? That's what's gonna win me this game. So
Yeah, that's a good point. You kind of put your opponent between a rock and a hard place, where the most valuable thing, the most tempo positive thing they can do is turn your 2/2 into a 7/7. So that's a good point.
it seems like, and the deck's been proving that it has like late game stuff going on. But Fireworks Tech just seems like if Mech Hunter's going to be a thing, it's going to be one of the best cards in the deck. And then Venomizer is another mech, and that's my other pick. It's a 2 mana 2/2 mech with magnetic and poisonous. It reminds me of Shielded Minibot because it's a 2 mana 2/2 mech, and they look similar. So this not only is a 2 mana 2/2 poisonous, which is actually really great. But you can give any of your mechs magnetic, or magnetic. You can give them poisonous. So once again, you play the kangaroo robot, turn one, and then you Venomizer it. I mean, that thing is really rude. A 3/3 with poisonous.
Yeah, that's
This thing
I mean,
seems really dirty.
it seems good. It's nice and flexible. Like the fact that it has magnetic means that in the late game, it's almost like it has rush or charge,
Hmm.
which is awesome because you can just attach it to something which can attack right away. And poisonous is a really awesome effect. So this will help an aggressive deck kind of punch through taunts very easily. I think that makes it strong. This one was like pretty close to making the cut for me.
Yeah, it's
I ended up
so
picking two
good.
cards that are much sillier.
I just thought
but
of
yeah,
Venomizer with the mechanical whelp. Like they don't kill your whelp, and you're like, cool, Venomizer it, kill your giant guy, summon a 7/7.
yeah, and I mean, if there's any mechs with rush, this is really good in there, and I think that there are. So this is a good card.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
if there's, it's nice and flexible. It does a lot of stuff, and flexibility is great. It's like an archetype maker. This is one of the main reasons why you'd want to play Mech Hunter as opposed to Mech other classes.
Yeah, it looks really good.
So in Hunter, I had a much harder time with Hunter than I did Druid. So I went with the first one. I went with is Secret Plan. So this is 1 mana, discover a secret.
Yeah.
I went with this because this slots into an existing deck. So I think the Spell Hunter deck, or Spell Hunter or some kind of Secret Hunter deck, which doesn't exist, but Spell Hunter does, would really like this because this is another way for you to have a turn 2 Wandering Monster, which is like one of the best things that deck can do. It's a very easy way for that deck to get ahead and stay ahead early on. This allows you to trigger your Emerald Spellstones more reliably. And Hunter Secrets are just great. Like at pretty much every stage of the game, that this is going to get you a card that you like.
Yeah, you're definitely right about this card. This one's also really good. The Wandering Monster is a really good point. That's just like devastating sometimes. Like Stone Skin Basilisk. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about it. But also they can be situational. Like sometimes a Freezing Trap is unreal, sometimes Explosive Trap is unreal, and sometimes either one is completely useless. So the Discover on this is really, really strong, and in particular because there aren't that many of them. Right, the list of Hunter secrets is nice and short, and so you have a much better chance of having a selection, not just having one good one available, but actually being able to choose between a few different good choices with this card. So I agree. This is a nice one.
Yeah, I think the pool of Hunter Secrets is powerful, and there's not a whole lot of misses. They're all like pretty tempo-oriented, good cards.
My only qualm about Secret Plan is that since it isn't a secret itself, it doesn't get pulled by Subject 9. Like if you wanna play a very secrety Hunter deck, and play Subject 9 and get full value, it will not pull these out. But that's a very little thing.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I think that this card's really good. So the next one I went with is Goblin Prank. I think
Oh.
so. This is 2 mana. I had to stare at this one for a while and really think about it before I concluded that it's potentially okay. So this is a 2 mana epic spell. Give a friendly minion +3/+3 rush. It dies at the end of the turn.
Mhm.
So on its face, this looks not that good, right? You play a minion, then you give it rush. You trade into something, and then it dies. You 2-for-1 yourself. That's terrible.
Yeah.
And you also can't use the +3/+3 to like deal face damage to them. Really, it's not like, I mean you can if the minion's been around, but like there are more effective ways to do 3 damage for 2 mana. So this card on its face didn't look that amazing, but then I thought about it a bit more, and I realized that Hunter has a whole lot of Death Rattle synergy. So this card could be, if you find a way to turn the dies at end of turn into an advantage, then this card suddenly becomes good.
Mm-hmm.
So with something like Devilsaur Egg or with the Mechanical Whelp we were talking about, these are just additional ways to get value out of those cards and trigger their Death Rattle. I think with a lot of the decks that we've seen so far that are sort of centered on Death Rattles, or at least the Kathrina deck, you kind of want it to still be your turn when the Death Rattle triggers, so this wouldn't be a good card in Kathrina, but in the Cube or the Egg deck, I think it would be a fine card.
I see that now. Yeah, with Devilsaur Egg, it's actually really, really rude.
Yeah,
because
so
you're almost always killing something if you give +3/+3, and now you can actually guarantee that you get your big guy.
Right, so this is like, it's a little bit like another couple copies of Play Dead, but it has this other effect of like giving you some tempo, and those are tempo decks at the core, or at least the Cube deck is. Like I said, I don't think this is a good card in Kathrina, but you know, in the Egg deck, I think it's decent.
It's definitely got the fact that you can also just play it on a minion that's already out and go face is pretty cool. Like if you need it to be a quick shot, it can. It's not like Rush forces the minion to be unable to go face.
Yeah, exactly. This can be 3 damage of reach if you need it to be, which is awesome.
Yeah, that happens in Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. So those were my 2 Hunter cards. The rest of these are harder to evaluate.
There's definitely a bunch of other good stuff here. I mean, like Boommaster Flark is 5 minions in 1. Could be very good.
Yeah. Hunter might not be the best class for that, but maybe it is. We have to see.
Maybe it is. It was the best class for Devilsaur Egg, apparently.
That is
We'll
true.
see how long that lasts. So Rogue got some juice.
All right, now that all that Hunter nonsense is over, let's move on to Mage.
Face nonsense. Yes. Jaina.
Yeah.
Jaina.
So, the cards that I picked here, I thought that there were some interesting ones. I had a little bit of a hard time with this.
Mm-hmm.
But the first that I picked out was Unexpected Results.
Yes.
This is a 4-mana card, 4-mana spell. It says summon 2 random 2-cost minions that are improved by spell damage.
So that's got to mean that like if you have spell damage +1, you get 2 random 3-cost minions, right?
Wait, what do you mean?
Isn't that what improved by spell damage means?
I see. I actually wasn't totally sure about what that meant. I assumed that meant the minions coming out would be improved by spell damage. I guess we could look this up, right? That's something we should just know.
Like you would get higher quality minions?
Like the minions would come out with a buff on them that would give you spell damage. But I could be what you said.
I think
that
that's
actually
it.
makes. Let me see. Yeah, no, you're totally right. Playing Unexpected Results with +1 spell damage will cause it to summon 2 random 3-cost minions. Okay, that's a little bit worse than what I thought, but still decent.
Yeah, so you thought it would summon 2 random 2-cost minions that each had a bonus effect with spell damage +1?
Yes, that's what I thought.
Okay, well that would have been pretty sweet. That's all. They should print that card. I like that card.
Yeah, I think that's probably a little better and more consistent.
Unexpected Results make it just always
yeah, right.
2/2 summon 2/2 Sorcerer's Apprentices with spell damage +1. That'd be really good with this card.
It would be.
Expected results are really good with unexpected results.
So I still think that this is so that's interesting. I think that doesn't really change my evaluation that much, although I do think that makes it a little worse. So the reason I picked out this card is because this is not that far from Call to Arms.
Mm-hmm.
If you like a 4 mana for 2 cost minions, they're random, so that's really unfortunate. You can get some real stinkers, but whereas Call to Arms would just pull them out of your deck, and it would also give you 1 more. That's really dumb. But this gives you random ones, but it's still a fair amount of value. So you're not really getting a deal on mana, but you're potentially getting a deal on cards, which is always good. So I mean, you could also just high roll Millhouse Manastorm. We all remember Piloted Shredder.
Yeah.
So there's potential upsides there, of course. Again, stinkers. So you could also just whiff and get terrible minions.
But
I think
2 Doomsayers.
Yes, right. But in a tempo deck, especially one that might be running other spell damage cards for stuff like Cinderstorm or Arcane Missiles, this could be a really excellent piece because it just does a whole lot of tempo stuff for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it
yeah.
looks good, and yeah, like a tempo deck would really like this.
Yeah, so for that reason, I thought it was sort of an archetype maker slash it fits into that existing tempo oriented deck. Um, but and I mean, yeah, it works a little differently than I thought, so I have to rethink it. But that also changes my evaluation of cards like Cosmic Anomaly, which is a 4 mana 4/3 with spell damage +2.
Yeah, that card's actually pretty strong.
It looks like it to me too. It almost made my list.
It's
Um,
definitely, I think it's better. It's better than it looks. I think it doesn't look very good because it's a 4 mana 4/3 that doesn't do anything, but I think that it is better than that.
yeah, I think so too. I mean, on turn 5 with an Arcane Missiles, this is actually pretty substantial. Or with like Shooting Star, the 1 mana deal 1 damage to a minion and the minions next to it. Like
Yeah, that one
this could be
mana,
good.
one-sided 1 mana Hellfire.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It could be in a tempo deck that's just like really excellent. So also, I mean, it buffs up your unexpected results. It's unexpected. The next card I picked out is another card for basically the same deck. It's Stargazer Luna. So this is legendary, 3 mana, 2/4 with after you play the rightmost card in your hand, draw a card. So this just wants you to top deck and keep playing cards at the top of your deck.
And that's what the Tempo Mage does.
Right, exactly. So in a deck filled with low cost cards, this type of effect is wanted. A worry is that this is like it's kind of bad with Alaneth, but I think at that point you just like win anyway.
Yeah, and it's likely that like if you have both Stargazer Luna and Alaneth, then you would play the Luna and they would spend resources killing her because she's really good if she stays out. And then after they expend those resources, you play your Alaneth, or vice versa. They might ooze your Alaneth and be like, "I'm glad I got this chick. She's gonna keep me going." And the Tempo Mage deck is unlike other tempo decks because of cards like Fireball, its ability to just go past people's taunt minions. So Stargazer Luna seems perfect. You just keep playing whatever it is you draw, and the more mana you have, the later in the game it is, the more likely you can like burn spell, and finish off someone who's trying to stay alive. Seems great, and she got a body. She provides another uh, minion with which to just beat your opponent down. And she's not too far below the optimal stats. So
Yeah, 3 mana 2/4 is fine
that
for three.
those seem to just also be really nice things to have for your Tempo Mage deck, or just idiots that can attack.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so this card seems like a winner. It's nice coming down early as a 2/4 for 3. It's also, especially if you're on the play, it's also nice later on if you just want to draw a bunch of cards. So I think it does pretty well.
Yeah,
What about you? What did you pick out?
definitely Luna as well for the same deck. If she's got some kind of combo potential, maybe that's probably way less significant and good than her strength of the tempo deck, I think. Um, and I also picked Celestial Emissary. So this is a 2 mana 2/1 elemental, and it's got Battle Cry. Your next spell this turn has spell damage +2. So this has got some synergy with Unexpected Results. You can play this guy and then play Unexpected Results and summon 2 random 4 drops, which would be pretty sweet for 6 mana. Um, and then he just seems like I don't know if he's really gonna be worth it in a tempo deck. He might be like playing it with Arcane Missiles, like you said, would actually be pretty
Right.
lit. Um, I really see him though as a card for the control deck because
Oh, sure.
sometimes your opponent's stuff is a little bit too chubby for your Blizzard or your Flame Strike or your Dragon's Fury, and you just throw this guy out there. Granted, with the Dragon's Fury, you're not going to see him again, but that's fine. You're pretty you he can turn a maybe board wipe into a definitely board wipe, and that's really valuable. Um, he's an elemental, which is cool for mages, and he's only got 1 health. So when you're Frostlich Jaina, you can pop him to make a 3/6.
Yeah, yeah, I was going to bring up those latter 2 points. I think that those are a nice little that elemental's a nice little trinket text for that deck. Like, I think that those effects are not going to come up as often as just making your blizzard bigger. But a control deck like that is happy to spend 2 cards to kill a bunch of stuff and survive another several turns. Because in a way, like the fact that it lives more is actually card advantage.
Hmm.
So I think I agree with you. I think that that's a pretty good include in that kind of deck.
It seems excellent for the deck, and it's all like the so like big spell mage is kind of went in a direction of fewer spells, like more minions, fewer spells, but the spells are expensive. But because they can't um, properly use Frostbolt and Arcane Intellect with Dragon's Fury in their deck, I think the number of spells went down, but how much you need to get out of them went up. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what this guy does. He gives you more oomph from your spells.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty good. There's a bunch of interesting cards here. I like their legendary spell a bunch. Luna's Pocket Galaxy, the 7 mana, change the cost of your minions in your deck to 1. I really want to play this in like Spiteful with 2 of the Ravens.
The Raven?
The no, is it the Raven?
Oh yeah,
The
Raven familiar, whatever. The oh, or is that the Druid card? No, that's Enchanted
that's
Raven.
Enchanted Raven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the
So
one
yeah, the
that
one that draws spells.
you can you and your opponent reveal spells, and if yours cost more, you put it in your hand.
Right. I was trying to think of how that deck would work out, and I couldn't come up with anything too interesting. But I'll
Yeah,
revisit that later.
that's the main problem with Luna's Pocket Galaxy is after all your minions in your deck cost one, like so what? You know?
Yeah, right.
But
You kind of want to just like have a bunch of them in your hand at that point, and then you don't.
the you could also use the Archivist, the 8 mana 4/7.
Oh, interesting. Oh yeah, that's
So
curious.
he'll just if Luna's Pocket Galaxy is your only spell in your deck, he'll just play it for you, and you get a 4/7.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, that's
So
interesting.
that could maybe be a combo if someone can find a way to properly use all those one cost minions.
Yeah, I mean, this is also good with like Book of Specters, but that's a non-bow with the Raven at that point, and that
Yeah,
was a lot of what I was running into. But I do think Mage has some card draw options in its minions, but like again, it's hard to know. That's probably just not worth it.
yeah. Tempo Mage looks like it could be really strong after this, um, and I think the Celestial Emissary is going to be pretty sweet too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Seems interesting. So moving on to Paladin.
Uther,
Yeah, why don't you start us off here?
let us begin with Shrink Ray.
Oh sure.
That card is great. This is a 5 mana spell. Set the attack and health of all minions to 1. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It just makes every minion that's out into a non-threat for the most part. You don't need to pair it with Pyromancer, right? So there's Pyromancer Equality is the classic Paladin control combo. You are setting all the minions' health to 1, and then you're dealing 1 to everything. Um, but if everything just has 1 attack, you don't even really need to kill it. Like you could play Shrink Ray and then play like a Stonehill Defender. Like it doesn't matter what if they had a bunch of giant mechs, now they're just 1/1s, and your Stonehill Defender wrecks them. So this seems like a great card for a control paladin, which is always my favorite paladin deck. And so I'm hoping this helps it revive. I'm not sure if it's gonna because of how like infinite other decks go. Like the other control decks can either just go on forever or OTK you, and those pretty much go over the top of Paladin and Shrink Raying stuff. But then I put on my super optimistic pants, and remember OTK with the Uther Death Knight is an option.
But you can't in standard. You don't have Beardo anymore, right?
No, you have to use Youthful Brewmasters. So you play Uther. It's not as I know it sounds bad, but it's actually not as bad as it sounds. You play the Uther
It's hard
Death
to
Knight,
imagine. Go on.
and you hero power, and you make one of the random knights, and then you play a Youthful Brewmaster and return it to your hand. Then next turn you hero power, and then you have a 1 in 4 chance of actually getting screwed over because you don't need the same one.
That's what I like to
But
hear.
75% of the time, which is most of the time, you'll get a different one. Then you brewmaster that to your hand, and then on the turn that you're gonna win, you can use the pixie or you can use. Oh no, and you can use Zola as well.
Mm.
So you need to Brewmaster twice, and also Zola a third night into your hand. But once you have you Brewmastered and Zola, so you have the three different knights in your hand, you can play all three, and then when you hero power, it's guaranteed to give you the different one.
All right. I think that sucks. But
It is terrible, but that deck definitely gets better with Shrink Ray.
that is true. You're absolutely right. Shrink Ray does slot right into that deck. Um, so one concern I have with this card as a control tool is it's good against certain kinds of boards. It's good against like a board filled with medium minions. So a mid range deck like the Tempo Rogue deck or those sorts of that style of mid range deck would suffer a lot from this. But this is pretty bad against swarm decks. So things like Odd Paladin, a board full of 1/1s is exactly what their deck is trying to do. It's built to do that. And same thing with the Wisp deck in Druid. They're kind of also they don't really care what stats their minions have as long as they have a lot of them.
That's true. I guess so. If your opponent has a board of like 6 Silverhand recruits, you're terrified.
Yeah,
But playing Shrink Ray does nothing.
yeah, but I mean, it's not like even if you just snipe 2 minions or 1 minion with it, it could be potentially decent. It also like helps you get through, taunts or something. I don't know. It's like it seems flexible
Hmm.
enough,
That's true. If your opponent has like a Mountain Giant, you can just play Shrink Ray.
right? Um,
You don't have to do it to a big wide board. You can just use it on like if your opponent is Mountain Giant, Shrink Ray is gonna make them feel real bad.
Definitely, it has flexibility. So even if it's not good against every board, it's a tool in the toolbox. Also, it works well with consecration.
Yep. It's but there's definitely a lot of good Death Rattle stuff already out, and a bunch more in this set, right? So that's another sort of strike against Shrink Ray. Like, man, your opponent has a Devilsaur Egg and you Shrink Ray. No, that's
Yeah,
not what you want to do.
don't do that. Yeah, that seems. I mean, it's a card. I think
But
it's
that's
potentially good.
yeah, I think it's one of the stronger cards Paladin's getting. I think Paladin's kind of on the lower end of how good the cards it's getting are. Um, but Shrink Ray's great, and Crystology also looks great. This is a 2 mana spell. Draw 2 1 attack minions from your deck.
Hmm.
So this is just card advantage. It's 2 mana, get 2 minions, and it's not random. You get to pick. So whatever 1 attack minions you put in your deck are the ones that you can get from Crystology. So I think there's potential once again for the control deck. You want your Stonehill defenders, you
Hmm.
know, and this just gives you your Stonehill defenders.
This also gives you your Bolvar.
Yeah, if you want to somehow get a win condition, Bolvar's not the best, but he's not the worst. He's
No,
better than he looks.
for sure.
So you can actually get a win condition from Bolvar with this. Um, and then there's like if Murlocs were popular, you could get like Hungry Crab.
Hmm.
There's potential ways to use it for tech minions as well. I don't. Is there one attack minion with silence? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
And nor one that really destroys weapons. So I guess it is a little limited in that way, but there's still a lot of great stuff you can get. You can get Blood Mage Thalnos.
Oh, there's that
Um,
there's that scorpion that destroys mechs, right?
no, it doesn't destroy mechs. It destroys like 1 attack minions.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. That's so much worse than what I thought.
Yeah, it would have been.
It was a mech. That's right.
Yeah, it's almost good enough.
Right.
But I think there's like minion. You can just use this in a control deck. You can use it in a combo deck. I'm not sure if it would really ever work in an aggressive deck, because you'd probably prefer to play Divine Favor.
Yeah.
But if there were an aggressive deck that was leaning heavily enough on some 1 attack minions, then this would be really great.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I agree with you regarding the aggressive deck because like when you're pulling minions from your deck, you kind of want them to be a little bigger at the point where you're playing a draw spell. So pulling 1 attack minions out is not going to be amazing. It doesn't fit into Odd Paladin, and it probably doesn't really fit into Even either because there might not be a lot of 1 attack minions you have access to. I think a lot of the ones that aggressive decks want are like 1 costed. So it's
And that deck never felt like I needed a draw spell. I always had stuff to do.
yeah, right. Neither of those decks is really like super in need, but Odd has Divine Favor anyway. So Yeah, it's interesting. It does have some potential because it's narrow. So if there is something that comes out later that has one attack that you just want to have consistently in a combo deck, maybe one that runs Shrink Ray, you could definitely play this card to pick it up.
It's also good with the Uther combo, just to thin your deck.
That's true.
That's the most important thing, of course.
Oh my god. Yeah, that is the deck that they're trying to print cards for. I don't know. But I hope not. Anyway, so the
Now that Ben is gone, they're like, what do we do? Uther DK combo? Sure.
I mean, I did get that card a 5 in the set review, so like I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Wait, don't you also have a golden one? Is that
No, that's
someone
not me.
else?
That might be somebody else. So the cards I
Well,
picked
wait.
out are actually both mech themed. So the first is Glowtron. This is a 1 mana 1/3 magnetic mech.
Oh yeah, that card looks great. It's a 1 mana 1/3.
Yeah, I mean 1 mana 1/3 is an amazing stat line, especially in a world where 1/1s are really popular, which is like this world. So
In
this
case you haven't looked around lately.
yeah, in case you haven't booted up Hearthstone and you've been playing like Magic Arena or something, 1/1s are really good. So this is an awesome stat line. We've seen it time and time again show up in mid-range and aggressive decks. So that is awesome. It's a mech, so if there's any mech synergy in your deck, great. It also is magnetic, so this is really good. And the fact that it's a mech makes it a recipient of War Gear, which was a neutral card that I picked out.
Hmm.
The 5 mana 5/5 with magnetic.
Yep, I've been seeing that in people's lists. It seems like it's one of the really good magnetic minions.
Yeah,
Yeah, Glowtron's just super versatile.
yes. It looks like it's incredibly flexible. It kind of like makes an archetype, and it actually is odd costed, as is War Gear.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, so this
Uh,
is there are a bunch of good odd costed mechs, and this could fit right into an odd paladin deck.
Luckily, that Scorpion's not hot costed.
Yeah, really. So
Could have been good if it costed one though.
yeah, yes, it could have been. Well, I mean, that would be like it wouldn't quite be Patch's level of oppression, but it could potentially just distort the early game.
That's pretty sad that a real card is better than shaving 1 mana of this card's mana cost.
Yeah, it's insane. Having the mana cost of this card is worse than an existing card. So the next card I picked out is of the same theme. It's actually Paladin's legendary spell, Kangaroo's Endless Army. So
Mm.
this is 7 mana, resurrect 3 friendly mechs, and they keep any magnetic upgrades. So Paladin has an awesome mech in Glowtron, and it's odd costed, as is Kangaroo's Endless Army, as is War Gear. So War Gear is already a card that you want to magnetic onto something. Kangaroo's Endless Army will get back a minion that received that buff with the buff on it. And it fits right into this sort of odd mech deck theme, if that exists.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess the problem with Kangaroo's Endless Army is that since the mechs are random, you could like get back a couple 1/3 Glowtrons or something like that, and that would suck.
It would,
Um,
but if
but
you are
if
reduced.
you,
But go on.
I was gonna say you can War Gear it, right? You can play Glowtron turn one, and if you can use other magnetic effects or War Gear on it, you're not gonna be sad when you revive it.
Yeah, that's true. So it's you're reducing the number of mechs that you could potentially revive with Kangaroo's Endless Army, and the probability you don't get your War Gear mech is if you had like 4 mechs that you played or something is pretty low. And if you're playing an odd paladin deck or you're just playing some other paladin deck, like there are other non-mechs you could be playing that are not going to dilute your pool. So it could end up being fine.
Yeah, that's true. You don't really need to. There's not too much of a deck building constraint because you could still use non-mechs, and that's just not going to mess up this card at all. And then yeah, the dinky mech problem, like magnetic, like the magnetic part, the fact that they keep the upgrades, that line of text in Kangaroo's Endless Army really makes it a card, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That is just so much more realistic. I'm still not sure about Kangaroo's Endless Army though, just because like so many of the best mechs I think are just making lots of 1/1 mechs.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm not sure if using that is going to be better than using these really great mechs that synergize with all the other strategies in your deck, which are about swarming the board.
Yep, that's a great
Um,
point.
but it could be. I mean, if you're both pumping out lots of Silverhand recruits and investing very little into having the option of assembling these big obnoxious mechs, the Endless Army could still turn out to be pretty strong. Um, and yeah, Glowtron is just so good.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the reason why I was sort of encouraged to look here at this spell because
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I think that like between Giggling Inventor, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and which we've already talked about in a previous episode, and Glowtron and like the Robo Bunny, the neutral like the Mecha or whatever. Like between all those things, that sort of makes Kangaroo's Endless Army worse. But I think War Gear just makes it so good.
Yeah, you'll always have the option to do that. And if using Ziliax, things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, Glitchron itself has magnetic, so like you don't have to play it just as a raw minion. You could play it on something.
That's true. You could still use Glowtron and play it in a game where you plan on playing Kangaroo's Endless Army, but you won't be reviving the 1/3 because
Right.
it'll have just been a buff. That's yeah. So this all looks a lot better than I had realized. Even Anoia module, I forgot that has magnetic.
Yeah.
If you give something +2/+4 Divine Shield and Taunt, that's really rude. And the only thing ruder is reviving it.
Yeah. Right. So it seems like it's potentially strong, and I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up for that reason.
Yeah, dude. There's also the Mechano Egg, which is a 5 mana 0/5 mech with Death Rattle, summon an 8/8 Robosaur. You
Yeah.
can just Glowtron that, and then it can attack.
Boy, oh boy, does Hunter want that card.
Oh my god, I'm glad they don't.
Yeah.
have
Same
it.
here. Same here. That would be a terrible world to live in. How about we move on to Priest?
Let's do it.
Okay, Priest cards are always really tough to evaluate. It's just one of those classes.
Yeah, this is no exception.
Yeah, these are just a bunch of cards with so much text on them. Just like it's insane how much text is on these cards. Anyway, just like look around at like Hunter or something. It's hilarious. So I had a tough time picking these out, but the first one I went with is Topsy Turvy.
Okay.
So this is 0 mana spell, swap a minion's attack and health. This is another Inner Fire, but it does something Inner Fire can't, and it can kill certain minions.
Yes.
So
This is 0 mana to kill Doomsayer.
yes, right. So this can kill a Doomsayer. And there's not really a whole lot of 0 attack minions that end up seeing play. But
There's another important one, Mana Tide Totem. That's
true.
like one of the most played Hearthstone cards right now, probably.
Yeah, that card's definitely really common, and this can deal with it pretty elegantly. So I think that additional flexibility is nice. It has some disadvantages over Inner Fire, obviously, being that it's reducing the minion's health quite a bit. And so it makes like relying on attacking with the minion over multiple turns not very good. But the combo priest deck tends to be, close to OTK anyway. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's I guess you can pop your opponent's egg with it. It's just we already talked about how that's usually not what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, so it's but I mean also like this could also help get around like a Void Lord or something. Even if it's not killing it, it could just make like, the butt heavy minions a lot less scary.
Yeah, which could easily be relevant in your Inner Fire Priest deck because you can't hit them if they have a Void Lord out.
Right.
So saving six damage for 0 mana is pretty sweet.
Definitely. Yeah, so this card seems decent.
Yeah, it seems it slides right into that deck. It costs 0. It looks really, really sweet.
Yeah, totally. Another one I picked out is Dead Ringer. So this is a 2 mana 2/1 mech with Death Rattle, draw a Death Rattle minion from your deck. So there's a lot of really tempting cards here to pick, but a lot of them are pretty silly or asking a lot or are just not doing something that another card can do better. Power Word Replicate being like Vivid Nightmare, but worse in a combo deck. But Dead Ringer felt like a card that on its own is not terribly exciting, but is pretty flexible. So I think there's a lot of different kinds of decks that would want to run this. If, for example, you have a combo deck that relied on some Death Rattle minion, this helps you get that card. If you have a deck that just wants to play a bunch of Death Rattle minions, this helps you do that. If some of the best minions in your deck, if you're not playing combo deck, but some of the best minions you have are Death Rattle minions, this helps you get there. So I think that this card, and it's like 2 mana 2/1, it's fine. So this card just is flexible, and I like that.
Yeah, even if you don't really have Death Rattle actually as like a theme, you could just like so many of the combo priest decks have got the two loot hoarders and the one blood mage Thalnos just to cycle to get to their combo, and now you can use Deadbringer also and draw the loot hoarders at the blood mage Thalnos. You know that
Right.
could be the end of the death rattle story for your deck, but he could still be a very functional way to do that.
Totally.
This guy's great, and the fact that he can be a tutor for specific death rattles is also really cool. I can't think of one that you'd really want to do right now.
There is a
That's like especially good.
there is a test subject combo deck that exists.
Oh right, that test subject has death rattle.
Yeah.
That's actually that's the card I picked.
Mm.
But I forgot that it has death rattle.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Also, Zarek, the legendary, has death rattle.
That is true.
Deadbringer seems sweet, and I forgot it's also a mech.
Yeah.
That's so handy.
Yeah, it seems like a neat little card.
I like it. Yeah, I went with Topsy Turvy as well. Seems like a shoe-in for the Inner Fire deck.
Hmm.
And Test Subject, also shoe-in. He's a 1-mana 0/2 with Death Rattle, return any spells you cast on this minion to your hand.
Yeah.
So he seems perfect in Inner Fire Priest once again. You have another 1-drop. The games of Inner Fire Priest where you have the Northshire Cleric turn 1 are so much better than the ones you don't. It's partly because that card's insane, but just having something early is really nice. And it's another target for your power word shields. Like you kind of want to just play those as quickly as possible. And now you can just play them. You have another way to play them early, and they'll actually give you bonus value because you get to play them again.
Have you seen Dog's test subject combo deck?
No, tell me about it.
Oh my god! All right, it's cool. It's tough to play. So you play a test subject, a Stone Tusk Boar, and a bunch of Radiant Elementals. And what you do is, the clock is your enemy here. You're trying to go infinite using test subject. So what you do is you like Divine Spirit it, and then you cast Vivid Nightmare on it, which makes a copy that has 1 health. And then you Topsy Turvy the copy, and then you get back Topsy Turvy, a Vivid Nightmare, and Divine Spirit. Then you cast the Vivid Nightmare on the test subject again, and you create another copy. You Topsy Turvy it, then you get back Topsy Turvy 2 Vivid Nightmares and the Divine Spirit, and you can use the Vivid Nightmare to like copy more stuff later, to copy your Radiant Elementals. But you could basically just generate these infinite combo pieces, and you have your Stone Tusk Boar out, so you could just make it big and then copy and kill your opponent.
That's absurd.
I know.
So I guess part of it is that you have to try and get the 3 Radiant Elementals out, or I guess if you have 2 out, 1 Vivid Nightmare is still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if you
1
have
mana of Vivid Nightmares.
the nice part about the going infinite with test subject is every time you kill it, you have 1 more Vivid Nightmare in the pool. So you have Vivid Nightmares to toss around, and you can use 1 to copy a Radiant Elemental.
Of course, that makes sense. So you could even start off potentially with only 1 Radiant Elemental out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at all the possible permutations, but of how that combo can go. But yeah, you don't need to start with 2. You don't need to have all 3 on the board.
Yeah, I think the math checks out that if you had 10 mana and 1 Radiant Elemental out already, you would need to do like 2 mana Vivid Nightmares and then 2 1-mana Vivid Nightmares, but then you would have infinite 0-mana ones.
Yes. So it's like
something like that.
It's pretty silly, but it definitely
awesome.
Exists. Yes. I have a
Well, I guess my prediction was right.
I have a screenshot on my desktop with a test subject that has 1,984 health on it.
Wow. Does it have any attack?
No, I lost that game. but it's okay. I was
giving it taunt.
Yeah, I know, that would have been pretty unreal. It would have been very hard to lose that game.
Just go to get up and jog or something. Just go do something else.
Yeah, right. So it's these are interesting cards here. Zarek's Cloning Gallery is another one to keep an eye on, but nothing jumps to the fact that they have to be in your deck and you could draw them means that it's not really a reliable combo enabler because it also comes in on turn 9. So if you have some sort of silly stuff that fell in Malagos, like you can draw one or both of them by the time you can cast this, or before you draw this.
Yeah, you would want Lab Recruiter with this card.
Yeah. Um, this is also if you're playing Spiteful and you had a bunch of Death Rattles in your deck, this could also just be another card for Spiteful.
Ah, Spiteful Priest. Instead of using 8s and 10s, you can squeeze a 9 in there. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I
That
mean,
could be really strong.
yeah, you just get a bunch of minions on your board, and like, Priest is not in the best position to turn a bunch of 1/1s into more than 7 damage. But if they had a bunch of Death Rattles, which Priest definitely has access to, then you could get value in other ways out of that.
Yeah, play a Cairn, and
Yeah,
that
Obsidian
card's
Statues.
fine. Maybe I don't know if you would want to do that necessarily
Hmm,
if you're just trying to play a Spiteful deck, but
right.
it could still be good. And then if you just wind up with random 1/1 Duskbreakers and stuff, that's fine.
Yeah.
One card that's proven to be better than I expected is I think it's like Nightscale Matriarch. It's a 7-mana 4/9 dragon. Whenever you heal a friendly minion, you get a 3/3 whelp.
Mm.
So that's not a new card, but that would be cool to get a 1/1 copy of.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So it seems interesting potentially in that kind of situation.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I'll have to try that later. So moving on to Rogue.
Rouge.
Yes. Wait, did I go first on Priest? Yeah, I did. Why don't you go first here?
Myra Rotspring. No, I'm not picking that card. So this one, it really does look like every class is actually getting quite a bit of good stuff, which is really fun. I think Rogues is more obviously fun than it is obviously good. But there's definitely some cool stuff here. For example, Necrium Blade looks really great. This is a 3-mana weapon with Death Rattle, trigger the Death Rattle of a random friendly minion. So, and it's a 3-mana 3/2 weapon. I don't know if I said that. So, one thing to note, it's not Battle Cry, trigger the Death Rattle of a random friendly minion. It's Death Rattle, trigger the Death Rattle of a random friendly minion.
That makes
So,
it worse.
in a way, it makes it worse. In a way, it makes it better. So, if I had a Death Rattle minion out already, and I had Necrium Blade, I would want it to be the Battle Cry. But if I had a Death Rattle in my hand that costs 4, I'd want to play Necrium Blade and attack, and then next turn have 4 mana, play my Death Rattle and attack with my Necrium Blade. So you actually, it actually allows you don't need to play both in the same turn. If you really want to pull it off, like if it's a really sweet Death Rattle, you can just hang on to it until the next turn. And then you don't need to play the Necrium Blade and the Death Rattle in the same turn. Sadly, it's a random friendly minion, but you can usually arrange that the only minion you have with Death Rattle is the one you want to trigger. That's not that hard. But I think with things like the Shredders and Devilsaur Egg, it's good with all of them.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting. I guess like Rogue has a weird relationship with weapons. I mean, it already has like a really excellent 3-mana 3/2 weapon. Shadowblade, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
really good.
yeah, and I mean, it's like, but that sees pretty fringe play, and like even decks that would traditionally want that kind of weapon or tend to not run it, in part because of like temp mid-range decks and stuff. Because Rogue's hero power gives it a weapon. In this case, though, that's actually not terrible. Because if you had a ton of mana and you really wanted to trigger the Death Rattle immediately, then you could play this attack and then hero power to kill it right away.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like you do have those sorts of lines available to you, which is not something I saw when I initially looked at the card. So that's interesting. It's a cool bit of trinket text, potentially valuable. Depends on the Death Rattles that are available to Rogue.
You can also pick it up with Countess Ashmore because it has Death Rattle.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
And also, Cavern Shiny Finder is another easy way, an easier way to draw this card from your deck if you really want it.
For sure. Yeah,
but the Death Rattle effects have been proving to be pretty powerful. Odd Rogue is really good, and this has an odd cost, so that could even possibly be a thing. And like we're getting the shredders, but we already know about the egg. Like getting an extra 5/5 with this is obviously very good.
Yeah.
And if it's going to do anything crazier than that, I have no idea. The other card I picked is Lab Recruiter,
Oh,
whom I mentioned already. This is a 2-mana 3/2 battle cry. Shuffle 3 copies of a friendly minion into your deck. So, its battle cry doesn't actually do anything, in a sense, because the board and your opponent's health, your armor, none of those things change. The only thing that changes is the contents of your deck, and that's not affecting the board immediately. So, in that sense, it's like a vanilla 2-mana 3/2, which is pretty bad. But I think that effect has a lot of potential, and we've seen it in Gang Up. So Gang Up is almost the same thing, but it's a spell. Um, and it seemed like Gang Up was almost good enough. Like there were ways that spending a card to put 3 cards into your deck could be worth it. It's just that it wasn't quite there because you are losing an entire card for that.
right.
This guy gives you a 3/2 for 2
Yes.
mana,
Yeah.
and slapping that on top of the effect is very, very nice. And if you're playing against an aggro deck and you don't need to do a combo, you don't need to worry about fatigue, you just need to not lose, you can just play him as a 2-mana 3/2 on turn 2. Whereas Gang Up, you would just be staring at it, wishing you were playing literally any other card. So and then there's cards like Myra's Unstable Element, which draws in your entire deck. That card seems like it's way better with Lab Recruiter around. So I can see Lab Recruiter potentially doing a bunch of different sweet stuff.
Yeah, it's flexible, and you're not paying too huge a cost to like put it in your deck because 2-mana 3/2 is fine. So
Exactly. It's not like Baleful Banker really feels bad because it's 2-mana 2/2, and you're only getting one thing in your deck. This is giving you 3.
yeah, yeah, I agree with that. So this is an interesting card, and I mean, if there was some kind of going infinite deck, it could even also run Baleful Banker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a deck. So I also had Lab Recruiter, but maybe a deck that had Pogo Hopper in it. So it's hard to know actually what other card to pick here for Rogue. Like, I think I think if mid range came back, which I don't know if it's going to, something like Crazed Chemist could be decent, which is 5 mana 4/4 with give a friendly minion +4 attack.
Yeah, that's fine.
Necream Blade could be potentially useful. Myra's Unstable Element can do some silly stuff. 5 mana, draw the rest of your deck spell. Something like we've seen people playing around with Pogo Hopper. In a way, it reminds me of Jade Druid, but like far less powerful. Or Jade Dex, not Jade Druid. But it's a little bit like Jade Dex, and actually with Lab Recruiter, it has a property that Jade Druid had. Though, you lack ramp and card draw that Druid has. I guess you have Myra's Unstable Element, but anyway. So it's hard to know what to pick here, but I guess I can at least point at Crazed Chemist. So 5 mana 4/4 combo, give a friendly minion +4 attack. Hard to trigger the combo, and it's not statted very well at all, so it's probably not good enough. But if you ever cared about just having big minions and doing a lot of face damage, this is one way to do it.
It's pretty sweet value. It's 5 mana 4/4 and a Cold Blood if you get the combo off.
Yeah.
It
But
just, like you said, to be getting the combo off, you probably need to be past turn 5, and it might be too late then.
yeah, and then the 4/4 is a lot less good, and like it's tough. It's hard to know. It's hard to know what's actually good here because I think some of these cards are in the territory where they could either be spectacular or just unplayable, like Myra's Unstable Element or Pogo Hopper. So
Yeah.
But nothing else. Nothing looks like it's kind of on this middle ground, so it's tough to actually know what to make of these cards.
It seems like Lab Recruiter just seems way too handy for
Yeah.
there not to be any decks that find a way to utilize them. You could even, try and put them in like Quest Rogue or something, depending on the pacing of the deck.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
it's an archetype maker potentially. It's very flexible and it's a unique effect. So like all of those things together means that it's probably going to find at least one use.
I'm excited for it. That's because I have been missing Gang Up. There have been times where it's like, you know what, I could make the thing I want to happen if I Gang Up. It's like, oh wait, we don't got it.
Right. So onto Shaman.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so Shaman has a bunch of interesting cards. Some of them are better than others. So the first one that I want to talk about here is Menacing Nimbus.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, this is a 2 mana 2/2 with Battlecry. Add a random elemental to your hand.
Mmm.
So it itself is an elemental as well. So if you have a deck that cares about elementals, like that just hasn't come together yet, and it's been a lot of sets. So I'm not really holding my breath for that.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Maybe this is the time. And but also it's just like a 2 mana 2/2 that draws a card, and those are traditionally good. And the chunky minion mid range shaman deck is a deck that like exists. And this also makes like this is like an insurance plan for your Shutterwalk if you are running that in the deck. Like if you just can't combo with it, you can at least draw a card from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems decent.
Yeah, it's understated.
Yeah.
Getting a 2/2 for 2 is really not what you want, and I think that's like the big issue is that that's one of the main problems is that the elementals do cool stuff, but a lot of them aren't properly statted, or aren't statted well enough to be better than like just playing even shaman and a bunch of good minions, because that's a thing. Playing an aggressive deck in shaman is an option. You don't have to play Shutterwalk.
Yeah, of course.
It's just that deck would not want Menacing Nimbus,
Yes.
and it's hard to yeah really get too excited of that. This is gonna unlock the elemental deck when it sort of has the same problem it's always had.
Yeah, it's that's kind of a big issue with it. But and also, I mean, another comparison card would be Hydrologist, which is a 2 mana 2/2 that draws a card. But Hydrologist actually stopped seeing play once Getaway Kodo rotated. So
Yeah,
like that suggested that the consistency was really important, at least for that kind of effect. Even though there are other Paladin secrets that are good, they tend to be on the weak side, but there's like okay. So not super duper high hopes for this card, though I do think it's a good arena pick.
great in
And
arena.
yeah, for sure. But also like potentially valuable in the right standard environment.
It is a 2 mana 2/2 that gives you a card, but I feel like
Yep.
it leans a lot more towards Tortle and Forager than it does Hydrologist, and
Yeah,
that
for
card
sure.
never saw play.
That's a really great point. I think you're right. So the other card that I have here is the Stormbringer. It's not Electra. So the Stormbringer is their spell. It's part of the reason I have this. I'll explain it. I'm looking for an effect like this. This is a 7 mana legendary spell. Transform your minions into random legendary minions.
Hmm.
So a deck that I tried to build a while ago was Odd Shaman, which had just no payoffs.
Yeah.
This is the pay. This is the kind of payoff you wanted. That deck just wants Evolve. That's what it wants, and it doesn't have Evolve anymore. But the Stormbringer is something else that you can do for something else that you can be rewarded with for being odd costed that synergizes with having a large board.
Yeah, what the choosing every single time is amazing because then you always get the best one.
Pretty good, right? So anyway, that's going to be a deck where you're encouraged to use your hero power really often, and this is a good payoff for that type of effect.
I thought you were gonna. I agree. I thought you were gonna go with a Spiteful Summoner.
So that was the other thing that I was thinking about. I just love that card. I hate it, but I love it. Uh, but I mean, in a kind of deck where you have a ton of minions in it, I mean, this is good, right? Spiteful decks are exactly that.
So that could be a thing too potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about Odd Shaman.
Nope, seems bad, but it has Bloodlust though.
Yeah, it has Bloodlust and Stormbringer, which is the main stuff that you need. Um, and that new 3 mana 2/1 that summons 2/1/1 mechs. That would also be really good in that kind of deck.
Yeah, there's also the 5 mana thing that does. There's also the Voltaic Burst that 1 mana summon 2/1/1 Sparks of Brush, overload 1. So
Mm.
these are all things that synergize, all things that support you having a large board in the odd deck. That seems far too silly, but that's fine. I think that's great.
Yeah, that seems great. Um, I have selected neither of those. My first pick is Electra,
Sure, yeah, I
Storm
think that's the
Surge.
best shaman card.
It's a 3 mana 3/3 legendary elemental. With Battle Cry, your next spell this turn casts twice. So, this is great with a lot of different spells. With Healing Rain, you are getting 24 health back. So it's a lot like Reno Jackson. Um, but you can also use Volcano and deal 27 instead of 15 because Electra will be out, so she's going to absorb 3 of the Volcano damage. But sometimes, I mean, very frequently, if your opponent's playing aggro against your control shaman, their way to not lose is to get around Volcano by making the board too big. So they might have like 2 or 3 minions out, and you don't Volcano on your turn because they don't have enough out, and then they just jam the gas and play their whole hand. And that way they're like, haha, now I have 20 health of minions out, and Volcano doesn't work. And then you can just be like, Electra Volcano. And then they'll probably scoop. Or you can also Electra Lightning Storm. I think these are all... those spells are all already in the Control Shaman deck. They're all already really good in the Control Shaman deck. And they're really good cast twice. You can also just use it with Farsight, which is like great. I think yeah, Electra's really strong.
Yeah, it seems super flexible, and I like that about it. It's also like you're not really paying a whole lot for putting in your deck. Like you just have to run a bunch of spells you're going to kind of run anyway. It's got decent stats. It seems like it's just a winner.
Yep, it's a huge pickup for Shaman, I think. And then my other pick is Voltaic Burst.
Sure.
Because this thing also seems really strong, and for multiple different decks. Voltaic Burst is a 1-mana spell. Summon 2 1/1 sparks with Rush. Overload 1. So the Overload 1 definitely makes it a lot worse. That's my main reason why I could see it being, non-played. But being able to deal 2 damage divided as you choose for 1 mana is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And the minions, they're minions. So if you have Flame Tongue Totem in your hand, you can throw that in between them and deal 6. That's like the dream. Direwolf Alpha will work with them. You don't even need them in between because they'll trade, right? So you just put the Flame Tongue on the left or the right and attack with the one that has 3 attack and trade it, and then the other one will get the buff. So It's really good with these good Shaman cards. And you can use it in an aggressive deck to keep your opponent's minions off the board, or you can use it in control.
Yeah, it seems good. I mean, Overload 1 hurts. That especially makes it bad in late game, but it's potentially. But it does seem like a good card when it's good, and just having access to a lot of minions is something that Shaman gets paid off for because of things like Bloodlust.
Yeah, it goes so well with Bloodlust and the Stormbringer.
Yeah.
It's cool with Cult Master. I don't know if that's going to happen, but you can, with 5 mana play Cult Master, Voltaic Burst, and draw 2 cards. It's usually tough to just out of nowhere have minions attacking other minions and dying, like without having first established a board. The fact that you can just pay 1 and make that happen seems very strong.
Yeah.
It's really bad with Wild Pyromancer.
That is some synergy right there.
So the Overload, now that Shudderwalk is such a big thing, there is definitely a big difference between Overload 1 and Overload 2. Because if you Overload 2, you just can't play the Shudderwalk next turn. If you only Overload 1, it's not ideal because you can only Shudderwalk once, but that's usually enough, right?
Yeah, that's enough to get you through the next turn, or just like win on the spot.
If you this Overload is obviously always a bummer on your spells, but 1 is much more acceptable number than every other number for that reason.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's less obtrusive. Rip Beakered Lightning.
Yeah, it's a big strike against Beakered Lightning, which could still wind up being good. But
0 mana, deal 1 damage to all minions. Overload 2. Ugh.
Yeah, so the Overload 2 it really hurts that card, but since Voltaic Burst is only Overload 1, that's one reason I could see it fitting into the Shudderwalk decks.
Yeah, it seems good. I mean, I liked Voltaic Burst a bunch. I think so. There's some interesting cards here for Shaman.
Shaman's definitely most excited about Electra though. That's so good.
Yeah, it's just flexible and like it's so clearly good. It fits into a bunch of existing decks. It's like just what you want. It's a powerhouse. So let's move on to Warlock.
Yes.
So start us off here.
I definitely had a tough time with this one because I also have a lot of either really good or really bad cards, I
Mm,
feel. Um, but the Soul Infusion, so this is 1 mana spell. Give
yeah,
the leftmost minion in your hand +1/+1. That seems really, really strong.
in the Zoo deck for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the aggressive Warlock decks will have a bunch of inexpensive, strong minions. And this is 1 mana for 2 power and 2 health. If there were 1 mana 2/2, it would go right in the deck.
Oh yeah.
So this is sort of like that, but actually better because you can have it on your, Voidwalker. So you would have a 3/5 taunt for one. You can have it on um, anything with like Divine Shield if you're using Argent Squire. That'd be awesome to play a 1 mana 3/3 Divine Shield. Um, but obviously the winner's Saronite Chain Gang, right?
Oh sure. Yeah. I mean, or doubling him both for like the same reason.
Yes, so that's my other pick actually, and essentially for that reason. Warlock is getting a backup Saronite. How long can this go
Yeah.
on?
Infinitely.
Oh my god! So doubling imp is a 3 mana 2/2. It's a demon, which is really great. Battle
Oh yeah.
cry, summon a copy of this minion. So if you can put Soul Infusion and doubling imp in your deck, and you draw your hand and you have Soul Infusion, doubling imp, and a few other minions. If you can get, and those minions are to the left of doubling imp. If you can, hopefully those minions are cheap, and they probably will be because you're using a lot of really inexpensive minions. Get those out of your hand. Play Soul Infusion. If you can do all that, get all that done by turn 2. On turn 3, you can play 2/4/4s.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
doubling
it's
imp
all.
is a 3 mana 2/2, and he makes a copy, so you make 2/4/4 demons.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not a whole lot of synergy with like buffing demons and stuff in standard right now, but there is some in wild. Um, so doubling imp is cool with that stuff, just because it's like not one but two targets for those things.
And
So
he's also like if you just look at it, I really like doubling imp because it's 2/2s for 3 mana. That's also really good. That's 4 attack and 4 health for
yeah,
3.
it's a
So
it's a decent deal.
you don't actually need to do anything with it to make it like a totally fine card to play in your zoo deck. That's just trying to get some demons or any minions on the board. It'll help out your Blood Reaver Gul'dan if you're not playing a control deck. You very rarely have too many demons, so
Mhm.
having two more 2/2s coming back is actually pretty nice. Um, so you don't even need the Soul Infusion combo. It's just like a good card.
Yeah, it seems good to me. I like it a lot too for Zoo, and like the way Zoo looks now is pretty low to the ground. So these sorts of like hyper aggressive cards seem like a great include for the deck. So Soul Infusion being awesome. It's also like a little better than a random minion in your hand because I was thinking a bunch about what it means to be the leftmost minion, and I think it actually depends on the cost distribution in the deck. Like in a deck with high cost minions, I think on average the leftmost minion is going to be higher costed. But in a deck with a lot of low cost minions, the leftmost minion might on average be lower costed because you'll be mulliganing for low cost guys.
Hmm.
So it seems I
Yeah.
don't know. It's hard to know. Like I think that's the kind of question that be answered with simulations, and I don't plan to do that. So um,
It's
still, either
also
way,
it's still fine on like a Leroy Jenkins or a Doomguard, right? Like the top end
oh yeah,
of
sure.
Zoo. It's actually still really interesting how powerful it can be.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to think about with this card, but I think no matter how you cut it, it's incredibly powerful because you
So
do also just have some control over it.
yeah, that leftmost part, you're right. That's so much better than random.
Yes.
I'm really really happy that they designed it that way.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. So speaking of Zoo, a card that I picked out here is the Solarium. So this is the legendary spell for Warlock. It's 1 mana, draw 3 cards. At the end of your turn, discard them.
Well, Ancestral Recall has arrived.
So Ancestral Recall is a really good Magic card, which is 1 mana instant, 1 blue instant, draw 3 cards. It's one of the best cards in Magic. This is worse, right? Because you discard them. But in a deck like Zoo, this is like this is one of the best late game top decks you could possibly get.
Yeah, it's perfect for late game, right?
yeah, this is just at a point where your hand is empty and you draw this card. It's like unbelievable. This card is a deck like Zoo loves this. This is like
Yeah.
so obviously strong. It's clear. It's so clear that this is a strong card. In a deck that's running top end, it is not really going to. It might not see play, which is like fine. That's good design. But in a deck that is running a lot of low end, I think it's a shoe in. And there's so many
Mhm.
cards that like that deck existed pre this expansion, and this expansion just offered a ton of tools to it.
Yep, the Zoo deck is definitely looking strong. Solarium does not look very good for control. Like if you draw a Void Lord with it, like what are you doing with that?
Or a Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
That would be very disappointing.
Yes.
And then yeah, I guess it's almost like Soulfire. It costs one, but you don't play it immediately. You hang on to it. But the moment you have mana to spend, you just jam it and you get 3 cards on your opponent for 1 mana.
Yeah, it seems awesome. So the other card I picked out here is I definitely think going to see less play than doubling it in Soul Infusion, but I picked it out because it's such a unique effect, and that's Demonic Project.
Mmm.
So this is 2 mana. Each player transforms a random minion in their hand into a demon. This is hand disruption.
This is very unique in the world of Hearthstone.
Yeah, so I think like again, this kind of I think if I had to place money on which of these cards are going to see play, this would be like the last one that I pick. But I think the reason not in terms of like all the Warlock cards, but of the 4 that we talked about, the 4 we focused on, I think that this is the least likely of those 4 to see play here. But the effect is very, very unique. So this prevents somebody from having a very greedy deck with very few minions that are integral to a combo, because then Demonic Project could start seeing play and really disrupt that kind of combo.
Yeah, wait, did we read this one yet?
Oh yeah, yeah, I did. I read it. It's the 2 mana. Each player transforms a random minion in their hand into a demon. I wonder if I actually read it. I guess I'll find out when I'm editing. I feel like I did.
I
Yeah.
honestly can't remember, but yeah, the point of it is that you can the part for you is a non thing. The point of this card is you can transform your opponent's Reno Jackson or something in their hand into some nonsense.
Right. So it's like it's Dirty Rat-esque in that sense, but I feel like there's a lot less risk with this card.
Definitely, because if your opponent also has Ragnaros in their hand, Demonic Project is still fine. But
Yeah.
Dirty Rat is suddenly a really risky play.
Yes. So this was interesting, and I thought it was worth mentioning for that reason.
Yeah.
Disruption in Hearthstone is fascinating because of how they choose to design it and how terrified they are of that, of hand disruption, or just interaction in general that goes beyond the board. But it's always interesting to note it when it comes out, because like even incredibly like narrow and relatively weak interaction and disruption in Hearthstone has seen play. Gnome-Feratu, a card that we both thought was not good, saw play.
Mhm.
Also, Dirty Rat, a card that is like that can go so badly. That card is just not good all the time, but definitely good enough to see play. And Skulking Geist, another example. Like all of these cards have seen play, and this is another disruptive card that sort of fits into that same slot.
I think there's a decent chance that it would see play.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it could. There's a lot of time, like against the greedy Druid deck, this would be awesome.
Yeah, get their Malagos or their Alexstrasza. I mean, they will be sitting there hanging on to really, really important minions, and this can just completely wreck one of them, and you don't have the risk of you just gave it to them like with Dirty Rat. Like Dirty
Yes.
Rat can stop a tricky minion, but it's not really effective against a big minion. Demonic
Right.
Project can really stop anything before it comes out. That seems it's even, so even Warlock would actually maybe want to use it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because even
It's,
Warlock can kind of afford to have a card that isn't doing anything because they get to draw 2 cards every turn.
Yeah. So that's another interesting thing. I mean, demons range from like really great to horrific, and I mean a deck like even Warlock is just such a good deck. It could kind of deal with the entire gambit. Even if you gave them a Void Lord or something, it can like manage it. So
I'd be stoked to get a Void Lord with the Demonic Project and even Warlock.
no, I mean not if yeah, I mean if you're playing Warlock because you also have Gul'dan, but like if your opponent got a Void Lord, I mean.
Oh yeah, hopefully that's not as bad as what it was before.
Right. Yeah, so that's an interesting card, and it's worth keeping an eye on. And
Yeah,
like,
pay attention
remembering.
if your opponent plays Firefly.
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's a really good point.
Also, I wanted to mention Ancestral Recall is target player draws 3 cards.
Oh, that's true. So this is not that, but
Just to be, because obviously people are gonna like start tweeting and commenting and shitting on us about you said the magic card does this, but it actually does this. So just wanted to get in there.
that's fine. That's fine. They would be right. So,
Everything they'd say would be completely accurate.
indeed. Let's move on to Warrior.
Oh man, I'm so excited for Warrior, dude.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts here. So yeah, these cards are kind of like they're kind of weird and funky and like tricky-esque, but I think some of them have the potential to be quite good.
Mhm.
So I want to start out with a card that I had a bad time against, and that's Security Rover.
Security Rover, yeah. Tell us about Security Rover.
So this is a 6-mana 2/5. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 mech with Taunt. You know, Warrior can make this take damage pretty easily.
Yeah, for 0 mana.
Yes, they can do it in a lot of ways. Multiple times, like on 6 mana, they can trigger this more than once, like pretty easily, just with how their deck works. So this is and this is like a substantial payoff. You know, a lot of they've been pretty weak and like pretty limp about the ways that they allow you to like get paid off for
Pretty
self-damaging
flaccid.
minions. Definitely flaccid. Definitely semi. And like Armor Smith and Acolyte of Pain were two of the strongest things that you could get, that you could get rewarded for by dealing damage to minions. But Security Rover is just an awesome addition to that slew.
Yes, it's. I mean, one of the tricky things about it, I think, when people read it the first time, they think rot face. Security Rover does not need to survive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's such an awkward thing. It's sort of like the Mechanical Whelp. You play the 6-mana 2/5, and your opponent's like, well, I'm just going to ignore that. It's just a 2/5. But then that's how your warrior opponent untaps and damages it a bunch of times and gets a whole army of mechs. Or you're like, okay, fine, I'll kill it. But now you have to spend your turn killing a 2/5 that when you kill it, they get a 2/3.
Yeah.
And if, like, are you going to kill this in one attack? Because if you're not, that's really awful. Killing dealing 3 to Security Rover and then dealing 2 to it, like, you replace a 2/5 with 2/2/3 taunts. Like, you're going the wrong direction. You're supposed to be weakening their board, not making it better.
Yeah, it seems really good. It's
so hard to, like, deal with it.
Yeah, it is hard to deal with because like if you have to kill it in 2 attacks, you're probably just not able to kill it. So it seems awesome.
And it is both a mech and it creates mechs. So you can magnetic the rover, which seems really rude, but it'll also leave behind mechs that you can magnetize.
Oh yeah, I had my opponent magnetic it with the Beryllium Nullifier, the 7-mana 3/8 magnetic with Shroud. That was a hard game.
Oh my, that doesn't sound fun.
It wasn't. So the other card that I picked out is Omega Assembly, a card that we already talked about. So speaking of Ancestral Recall, this is 1 mana, discover a mech. If you have 10 mana crystals, keep all 3 cards.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, 1 mana for discover a card has seen play. Hallucination is a card that is played. That kind of effect like gets a little better as the game goes on, but it also depends on the card pool, whether or not this kind of effect is good. I think I know a guy who was like on the cusp of being playable, but
yeah,
Omega Assembly is something that this is like an amazing top deck. You almost want to keep this until later if you have other plays available.
it's a lot stronger than it looks, partly because Warrior is getting a bunch of great mechs right now.
Yes,
and as we all know, but you may not have known this, that when you discover cards of your class are much more likely to show up than neutral cards.
Yep.
So you'll much more frequently be getting Security Rovers and Dynomatics and Beryllium Nullifiers from this, and Eternium Rovers. Like these are like Eternium Rovers, another great warrior mech, than other stuff. So yeah, I think this card is great. And then yeah, it would kind of be like potentially disappointing late game. Except you get to keep all 3. It's just like such it solves. I think it kind of solves a problem that Warrior would have where it had to be using Dead Man's Hand. Like if you want to play Fatigue Warrior, the only way you could really guarantee that you would have stuff later on is via Dead Man's Hand, which is really inefficient
Oh yeah,
because
that
the card
card's
doesn't do
horrible.
anything.
Yeah.
But Omega Assembly, you can just use it as a card early to get you minions to fight your opponent, and then late game it can sort of be your Dead Man's Hand, where you get way more cards out of one card than one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Dead Man's Hand's like a necessary evil. It itself is not a good card, but
Mm-hmm.
this is this is nice because it is like, yeah, it's a way to guarantee that you have some stuff late. I think that it's not like Dead Man's Hand Warrior is just going to go do a 1-to-1 replacement with the Mega Assembly, but if you have a late game Warrior deck, they might be willing to play this. Also, if you have a minion light deck, Omega like Recruit Warrior, Omega Assembly is a way for you to have early minions.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I hadn't
so
thought about
it's
that. That's excellent in Recruit Warrior.
yeah, so that's like it's a flexible little card, and it seems like it slots into an archetype they're trying to build into the class, but also into several other ones. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on.
For sure. I think it's good to see play.
Yeah, for sure. So what are the cards that you picked out here?
This one was tough because I think that both cards you picked are amazing, and I didn't pick either of them.
Nice.
I think Security Rover is really good, and Omega Assembly is really good, and they're both deceptive in how good they are. But I had to pick Doctor Boom,
Oh sure.
partly because I legitimately think it's good, but also, I mean, are we're not really Hearthstone podcasters if we don't have an argument about whether or not Doctor Boom Mad Genius is a good card.
I think it's a great point. I mean, so okay, on one hand, the hero power is like going to be inconsistent, and I think that that is a strike. Like, even that wasn't even that was like a downside of Lich King, for example. Like some of the pool is great, but some of it is not, and like some of it's situationally good, and that means that a lot of the time the card gets not that amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But unless it's Death and Decay, so the fact that this is sort of in a similar situation where a lot of these hero powers are situational, is makes me think about that. But on the other hand, just giving your mechs rush for the rest of the game is like that's crazy, especially if you have 7+ mana.
Yeah, so Doctor Boom Mad Genius is a 7-mana hero card,
Oh sure.
and it's the first. Wish I've added this. It's the first hero card to give you 7 armor instead of 5. So that's pretty notable, and that's obviously a callback to the original Doctor Boom card, who was a 7-mana 7/7. This is a 7-mana 7 armor hero. So he gives you an emblem, if you will. That's a magic term for a permanent effect for the rest of the game. All of your mechs have rush. And he gives you one of 5 random hero powers. So there's 5 different hero powers that are unique to him, and you'll get one of them at random. And then whenever it becomes your opponent's turn, your hero power gets switched to another one of the 4. So you'll never get a repeat. The 5 hero powers are Micro Squad. They all cost 2. Summon 3 1/1 Microbots. So those are 1/1 mechs. So that means they're going to have Rush. So it's 2 mana, get 3 1/1 Rush mechs that you can also magnetize. This seems
Very gross.
unreal.
Yeah.
The next one, deal 3 damage. That's kind of some redundancy, which helps with the random nature. That there's 2 of these hero powers already can deal 3 damage. So that 3 damage can go face, it can hit a minion, it'll get around taunt. Delivery Drone is discover a mech.
Oh, that has rush. That's also kind of redundancy.
So yeah, so that mech will have rush, so you can discover a mech and then play it and attack immediately if your opponent has a threat you have to kill. And it just gives you a late game. Once again, this is another way to get around Dead Man's Hand. Is just, a fifth of the time you'll get a fifth of the time you get Delivery Drone. You can, I guess if you don't have Delivery Drone already, it's a fourth of the time. You can get a mech and have a late game. There is Blast Shield, which is gain 7 armor. So we definitely wanted one of these hero powers to be armor, as is 2 mana for 7 armor, which is awesome. And then Kaboom! Deal 1 damage to all enemies, which I think is the worst one, which is crazy because it's really good.
Yeah, that's something that mechs with Security Rover already have built into them, this synergy with that kind of effect. And like your warriors, so you could just run Armorsmith and other sorts of cards or Acolyte of Pain, and get value out of this kind of effect?
Oh no, it's all enemies.
Oh, all enemy. I'm sorry, not all things.
It's
My bad.
interesting that all things would have potentially been better.
Yeah, no, that's so then never mind. Unfortunately, you can't get. Yeah, that does seem like the worst one then
But
by like
still
a fair
very
amount.
strong to deal 1 damage to all your enemies' minions and to their face. So yeah, this is definitely a difficult card to evaluate. It's a hero card. It's got a random hero power element, but I think the bottom line is that since all of them are really strong, all the hero powers are really strong, um, this is just going to be a really good card for slow control type warrior. So fatigue warrior or recruit warrior. It's another card you can play that isn't a minion that would get recruited that you don't want to recruit. So it's another way to fill up your deck. Um, and yeah, you can, instead of playing Dead Man's Hand, just sit on Doctor Boom, and you'll create some 1/1 mechs. Like you can just summon 3/1/1s to start beating your opponent down, or you can discover some mechs, and win with those.
Yeah, it seems cool. It'll be interesting to see, how good it is. I think it's good in a deck that has a lot of mechs in it already because of the rush effect. But we'll see what kind of shells end up for this,
Yeah,
supporting this.
it's cool that you do not need a single mech in your deck, and this card is still good, I think, and it's gonna provide you with mechs that will get rush.
Yeah, I mean, it's painful to have a card that's just like 7 mana, gain 7 armor the turn you play it, but the incremental value is there for sure. If you survive with this thing for a few turns and high roll in the hero power once or twice, like you could end up pretty far ahead. And especially if you're running cards like Omega Assembly or something in your deck, or just other mechs, like yeah, definitely. But I think it's not like a shoe in for being an auto include in every warrior deck, is my opinion.
Yeah, definitely not all warrior decks, but I think Control Warrior, which is my favorite kind of warrior to play, is pretty stoked on this card. Um,
Perhaps, yeah.
and
I mean,
and
armor's really good.
yep, um, we'll see if it can really, because I would love to not need to think about Dead Man's Hand anymore. I
Oh
don't
yeah, no, I agree.
uh, I don't want to have to play it, so I'm hoping that this can help with that. Um, and then Dinomatic is my other pick. This card seems ridiculous. This card is insane. So this is a 5 mana, 3/4 mech with Battle Cry, deal 5 damage, randomly split among all minions except mechs.
Mm.
So when you play it, it's gonna deal 5 damage not to people's faces, only to minions and other minions. It'll never damage itself because it's a mech. If you have other mechs, it's also not gonna damage your own minions. Um, 5 mana for 5 damage and a 3/4 is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I this card kind of slipped under my radar, but now that I look at it and think about it, that's definitely like a super strong effect if you're playing against a minion deck, or yeah, I mean, or just you have a bunch of mechs in your deck. This seems really hard to deal with.
It's goofy, like how good it is. Like if your opponent has like a Loetheb, I guess that's not in standard, but some 5/5 or 4/4, he's like kill it, get a 3/4.
Right.
Like that's
For five.
insane. And or your opponent could have like a Flame Imp and a Void Lord, and not Void Lord, Void Walker. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and you just kill all of it and get a 3/4.
Yeah, it seems like a good card. Even if it's like the only mech in your deck, if you have a low minion count deck,
Yeah,
this would
I
be
I
really good.
foresee a Control Warrior deck with Doctor Boom, Omega Assembly, and Dynamatics. And your Dynamatic will have Rush when you have Doctor Boom played. Um, and so I guess my only problem with Dynamatic is if mech decks are really popular, you won't be damaging your opponent's mechs with it.
Right.
So that's why it's kind of metagame dependent, but it seems like it's just going to be ridiculously good in Control Warrior to me.
Yeah, it's a strong effect for sure.
And another really good card that Warrior got is Weapons Project for Control. So I think between all of these powerful effects, Control Warrior is going to be improved.
Yeah, Weapons Project seems like a really good card in Recruiter Control. So 2 mana, each player equips a 2/3 weapon and gets 6 armor. If you just don't have targets for the 2/3 weapon, then that's like a one-sided effect. and that 2 mana 2/3 weapon is like solid. So
Yeah,
that seems great.
Warrior's totally happy to have one. You gotta overload yourself to get one in Shaman.
Yep, totally. Yeah, so I mean, it looks like Warrior got a lot of interesting tools. Hopefully, we'll see a resurgence because that class has been a little out of favor for a while.
Yeah,
And
the chart on VS that shows its popularity is pretty grim.
yeah, well, they just have to make it past all the druids. So
They might have a way. You can. A great response to UI is Dynomatic to blow up their 5/5, get a 3/4.
that's true. That's definitely true. So how about we move into the neutrals?
This is very exciting. There's a lot of really good neutral minions. This was definitely the challenge of
Oh my god.
this
Yeah.
set review.
Yeah, I love they've gotten a lot sillier and more unique with the neutral minions, which I guess is kind of necessary because you eat up a lot of the easy ones in your early sets.
Like
So
Angry Chicken.
yeah, right. Like or just, vanilla kind of cards. There's just
Mhm.
not a whole lot of those.
River Crocolisk.
Right. So so there's a lot of really interesting effects here. And yeah, why don't you start us off?
Let's start off by contradicting you with a vanilla minion. I actually picked a vanilla minion.
Sure.
For my 5. So we each picked 5 neutral cards that we're hyped about, and I'm starting with Upgradable Framebot.
The only vanilla minion here.
Oh, it's the only one in the set?
The only vanilla minion of the neutrals.
Okay. Yeah, so you are right that they certainly are moving away from that, but at the same time, they were able to still design a vanilla minion that's interesting and good.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-mana, 1/5 mech. And that's it. That's the end of the story. There's no more. But that's really where the story gets interesting, right? The stats are kind of nuts.
Yeah, 2-mana 1/5 is a lot of stats.
There's everybody's favorite minion, Amgam Rager, which is a 3-mana 1/5. So this is just a strict upgrade from that. But the running rate normally for a 2-drop is either getting a 2/3 or a 3/2, which adds up to 5 total. And his stats actually add up to 6.
Wow, when I just look at this card and I think of Druid of the Swarm, it makes me hate Druid more.
Yeah, the how good the deal Druid good of a deal Druid is
Jesus.
getting there is like
Jesus
preposterous.
Christ. That's ridiculous.
But this mech, it's called Upgradable Framebot, so obviously the thinking here is that you're going to play a magnetic card and pump it, and that seems great. Like, all of the cards that have magnetic, if you play it on this guy, it's going to be great.
Oh, like the poison guy in Hunter. Ugh.
Oh my god, yeah, so you would pay 2 and make this a 3/7 poisonous? I like
On turn 3.
I don't want to play that game. That sounds rude. As a War Gear, it becomes a 6/10. And it'll already be out. Like, that's the other reason that I think this card has a lot of potential, is you can just play a turn 2, and your opponent's going to have trouble killing it, because it's got 5 health and it's got 1 power, so it'll cost them something. And then once it's already out, you can just magnetize it and get going. It's great against 1/1s. We were talking about how good 1/1s are, and you can play this 1/5 and just start punching their 1/1s. You can play it in Inner Fire Priest. It's a 1/5. It's got a ton of health, so you can buff it in Inner Fire Priest and OTK your opponent. You don't even have to be playing Magnetize. It's just really good with buffs. So the old 3-cost spell, the Unidentified Elixir, that's actually really good on this card. This guy seems sweet.
Yeah, that's interesting. This kind of slipped under my radar, but now that you bring it up, that does seem like it's really good. Also, this is an awesome hit off of like Call to Arms.
Ooh, maybe it's coming back.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty interesting. So I certainly like that. With War Gear around and like Ziliax, that's pretty awesome.
That's really, I think, what makes him so interesting, and I'm so glad they printed him. His existence makes the existence of Magnetic much more meaningful.
Yes, for sure.
And I think that he will, if there are decks that use Magnetic to their advantage, he's going to be a big part of their success. Low cost, durable mechs are going to be critical for Magnetic being good.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's most of what I picked actually for my neutral picks is
Nice.
just durable, inexpensive mechs. So upgradable framebot looks good. I already mentioned this one. Microtech Controller is a 3-mana 2/1 with Battle Cry. Summon 2/1/1 microbots.
That's one way to get a 4/3.
Yep, so we can add up the stats again, and this adds up to being a 4/3, which is right on the money. Getting a 4/3 for 3 vanilla is like not awful. But this is divided amongst 3 minions. This is 3 minions for 1 card. This is muster for bots.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So
That's
we
interesting.
know Muster for Battle is an amazing card, and this doesn't give you the weapon, but it's 3 minions, 3 mana, and 2 of them are mechs.
Oh,
So
and it's
if
odd too.
and it is odd, yes. So you can play
Wow.
it in odd Rogue, which seems like it'll be really good. You can play an odd Paladin too, of course.
I'm building that
Um,
deck right away.
it's in a way maybe not as much of a shoo-in into Paladin because like you could play a vanilla 1 mana 2/1 and then hero power.
Yeah, that's true.
And you probably would be happier because you would have Silverhand recruits instead of mechs. But if Odd Paladin takes a mechanical turn, then this will definitely be in there. And like turn 5, you could play Microtech Controller and Hero Power.
Yeah.
So I could totally see her in there. But she seems particularly mean in Odd Rogue. I think this could even make Odd Hunter something people want to do again because it's just so aggressive
Yeah.
and it's just such a great hookup if you want to play a 4 or 5 mana magnetic minion. She hooks you up with 2 mechs. On turn 3, one of them will probably live, and then you just upgrade it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This card kind of slipped under my radar as well, but this is a whole lot of minions for 3 mana, and it's neutral. So I mean, this could.
Hmm.
I guess it kind of depends on what sort of cards are around and what hero powers are the most common, and like what kind of hate there is against having a lot of minions. But if there's not a lot of that stuff, then this could be really good.
It seems great in Token Druid too, though they would not want to use Oaken summons anymore.
Yeah, this would be really interesting if like Mark of the Lotus was still legal.
That would be, oh my god, yeah. If the Innervate gave you 2 mana with this card.
Yeah, oh my god, I hate that deck. I hate that class.
Well, it's bad news. Probably gonna be around for a while.
Yeah, I mean it's like my one of my most played classes. It's
Yeah,
fine.
me
I
too.
don't actually hate it, but still.
So Microtech controller. There's something Saronite chain gangy about it to me.
Yeah, sure.
The amount of meat you're getting on the board, and it's this neutral minion. The 1/1s are mechs. There's just so many things about it that seem like it could be really good. Just like with Chain Gang. Chain Gang not only proved itself in aggressive decks that like to have minions like Zoo, but the way the text is written wound up making it part of this crazy shaman combo.
Sure.
So I think that there's a bunch of nuances about Microtech controller that make it really great for a lot of different decks, which is so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Mecharoo. So this is a 1 mana 1/1 mech with Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Joey bot, which I believe is gonna also be a mech.
Yeah, it is.
So
One
it's
one.
like Possess Lackey, but neutral.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Possess Lackey was a fantastic minion in Zoo. I think overall Possess Lackey is probably worse with Fireflies flying around,
Sure.
but this is once again the exact kind of mech you want for your magnetic deck. It's cheap, and it's tough to get it off the board, or if you do get it off the board, you just get another mech. It also provides an early death rattle, so if you're playing a death rattle based deck, whether it's rogue or hunter. Before I would have just said hunter, but now rogue is getting some ways to trigger death rattles. Sure, you're only getting a 1/1, but it's still better than nothing, and it's a mech. So if they kill this mech, then you can just magnetic your next mech.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like I mean the durability is really awesome, especially in a deck that wants low cost minions. Like this is also just another great one drop for aggressive decks.
It's like in a lot of ways going to be better than Argent Squire because like Twisting Nether, for example, would kill Argent Squire, but Mecharoo would still give you the 1/1.
Yeah, yeah. So it's good.
And fortunately, there's no Potion of Madness to play around.
Yeah, luckily.
But so the other cards we mentioned, like the 2-mana 2/2 in Hunter that has Poisonous and Magnetic. Let me see if I can find what the name of it is. Venomizer. Venomizer just gets so much better with Mecharoo.
Oh, for sure.
So there's just a lot of these mech cards, a lot of these magnetic cards just get way better with a Mecharoo around. And then, like you said, it's actually just fine in a non-mech deck too that just needs minions.
Yeah, totally.
So these are some aggressive cards. Upgradable Framebot, Microtech Controller, Mecharoo. That's going to put a lot of pressure on the control deck. So we will see if Shutterwalk can even survive something like this, but I imagine it can. Another really great aggressive minion is Coppertail Imposter. So this is a 4-mana 4/4 mech. Battlecry gains stealth until your next turn.
Oh, we've seen cards like this before.
Yeah, and I think it's deceptive because it's a common and it's only stealth for one turn, but I think that's all you need.
Usually, yeah.
Like this is a really good rate. A 4-mana 4/4 can be very, very good. And your opponent just can't interact with it essentially during their turn. And when is it good to have a minion your opponent can't interact with, or when is it best? It's best if you've got a pump spell in your hand that you want to definitely land on your guy, and that's exactly what Magnetic is.
Right.
So this just once again has really great synergy with Magnetic. There's a bunch of different good Magnetic minions in all different classes, so this being a neutral, it looks like it's going to show up in multiple decks as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. So this reminds me a little bit of Master of Disguise, except it kind of like hits itself, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like that card was good, and that card saw play. Like this is this seems awesome to me. It seems like it's a card that if mid range ends up being good, if 4-mana 4/4s are good minions, which sometimes they are, then in an environment where decks are kind of slow, then this card would be awesome. Or Priest, or there's like a lot of Priest around, Control Priest. This card kind of like eats that deck alive.
It's excellent against Control. It's even like there's a lot of ways to use it, I think. And the environment lately seems like if you can stick a minion and then do something with it, that's going to be really strong.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is a really great minion for that. It provides what you need there really well. Great with Magnetic. It does not work with Oaken Summons. That definitely would have been really nice if you could get 6 armor and get a 4/4 stealth. It's also if it's another force that would prevent Dinomatic from being good, or whatever that warrior mech was called, that I think is really, really good. This is a 4/4 mech, so it wouldn't damage this card.
Oh yeah, the 5-mana 3/4. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So once again, the Dinomatic, which deals 5 to non-mech minions, how good that is going to depend on the popularity of the mechs.
Yeah, for sure.
And then my last pick. So I actually have no legendaries here. I just went through 4 commons, and now I have a rare, Spark Engine. So this card is sweet. This is a 2-mana 2/1 mech with Battlecry, add a 1/1 Spark with Rush to your hand. So this card does a lot of stuff. It's going to give you a 2/1 for 2, so it gives you a body, but not only is that body a minion that can attack, it's also a mech, so you can Magnetic it. You can trigger any other mech stuff with this 2-mana 2/1. It also gives you the 1/1 Spark, which I believe costs 1 mana. So now you're going to be able to deal 1 damage to a target of your choice for 1 mana when you're ready. So you can play Spark Engine turn 2 as a 2-drop. You can play it turn 3 and then attack with your 1/1 turn 3. Or you can save the 1/1 Spark to use with your Flame Tongue Totem, or to use with Blessing of Kings, or whatever. Having a rush minion just ready to go for 1 mana can be really good in a lot of decks. And since it's you don't have to pay all 3 at once. It's not 3 mana, get a 2/1 and a 1/1. You can pay them in separate intervals. Like that flexibility makes it a lot stronger. And the Spark is an elemental. So not only is this a mech for your mech deck, it's also for your elemental deck.
Yeah,
If
that's
you-
interesting.
If you're playing an elemental deck that says, like if you played an elemental last turn, so and so happens. This is another way to include just a nice cheap 1 mana elemental that can do something.
Yeah, so this is interesting. It's a little bit like Razor Petal Lasher, but it's in
Mhm.
neutral. So I think it's important that you mention cards like Flametongue Totem and Blessing of Kings, because those are not effects that make the Razor Petal Lasher better, but they do potentially make Spark Engine better, which itself is also a mech, so it's a magnetic recipient.
It seems like it would be really good in even Paladin. It seems like it'd be really good in even Shaman. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
I'm also really excited to see. I think this mech is probably the best elemental
Yeah.
in the set, at least for the elemental deck.
Yeah.
I think probably the best elemental in the set is Electra.
Electra. Yeah.
Yeah, that card's ridiculous, but this card seems like a really good pickup for the elemental deck, in addition to being a really good pickup for the mech deck.
Definitely. Yeah, that's really interesting. That card is that's unassuming, but I think when you put it in the context of those other decks, that's really good. Like something really special that this does in like an even deck is give you a turn 2 play, and then on 3 you could play, or on 4 you could play like a 2-drop the elemental and then hero power or something like that. Like it gives you another way to fill your curve, which is really valuable in even decks.
Could even be like even Warlock. You get this is a 2/1 for Defiles, or you can use the 1/1 for Defiles later.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I really, really like the design of this card, and it also looks like it's going to be really good.
Yeah, definitely does a lot of stuff, and that's pretty cool.
I'm pretty stoked about it. What did you pick?
So we share Mekaru, and that's actually the only thing we share.
Oh, okay. So that was the 1/1 mech for one that has Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 mech.
Yes. So another one I picked that I mentioned a couple times is War Gear. So 5 mana, 5/5 with magnetic. This is like Blessing of Kings in neutral.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so it's a lot more narrow than Blessing of Kings for sure, because it can only hit mechs, but that is fine because it is more flexible than Blessing of Kings in that it's a neutral card. So this is, and also like you can just play it as a 5/5, whereas you can't play Blessing of the Kings as a 4/4. So this is like, it's interesting, it's worth looking at, and I think a lot of mech decks will run this as a huge payoff for being a mech deck.
Yep, I think this is probably the best mech payoff there is.
Yeah.
And your point about it being a 5/5 minion is like, it's so much better than Blessing of Kings in that sense. Like, if Blessing of Kings was summon a 4/4 or give +4/+4, that'd be like in every Paladin deck.
Yeah, right.
That's really, really, really good. That's really good. And that's essentially what War Gear is. Sadly, every number goes up by 1. I think that makes it slightly worse.
Yeah, I think so too.
But in other contexts, like if you're going to bring it back with the Paladin spell, you'll be happy it's a little bigger. Yeah, War Gear is awesome. It's a little clunky, I guess, because it's 5 mana and it doesn't have rush or charge itself. But the
But it's
whole point
magnetic.
is you can just put it on a minion that's already out.
Right. So in a way, it one of its effects kind of does have rush or charge, and that is like, I think that's a really huge boon for the magnetic effect in general. I like this design of. I like this. It's like Bestow. We talked about that, in our last episode. I think it's a really cool way to design a buff and a minion, sort of an enchantment minion in a single card. Very neat.
I love it.
Yeah. So Giggling Inventor is another one I have.
Been laughing a lot when that card gets played.
Yeah, the battle cry is her imitating the Annoyatron. So it's like really, really good. It's a great battle cry. So it's 5 mana, 2/1 battle cry. Summon 2 1/1 mechs with taunt and divine shields, 2 Annoyatrons.
2/1/2 mechs.
1/2 mechs, yes. So right away you pay 5 mana, you get 2 1/2 taunt divine shields, and a 2/1. That is like just a horrific board for your opponent to see.
Oh, it's such a headache.
Yeah, if you just have any minions out and you play that, like those minions are surviving for a long time. It's like a Sarnate chain gang on steroids.
Yeah, it's essentially four attacks separate your opponent from doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like you set them back really far, and it's also odd costed. So if you have decks that care, odd decks tend to be aggressive. So if you have an aggressive odd deck, like you'd be happy to put this in there to secure your position on the board. Also, I've seen this deck already in token druid lists. Like this synergizes really well with a bunch of the global buff cards that druid has.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great card. It creates mechs, like it creates annoyatrons. I mean that card was like that's card saw play back in its day.
Yeah, this card seems really good.
Yeah,
it's super obnoxious.
It is a strong card for sure. So another card I have, which I think is more silly than anything, but people are building around it, is Mechathon. So this is pretty funny. I think there's two possibilities for this card. So it's 10 mana, 10/10 with Death Rattle. If you have no cards in your deck, hand, and battlefield, destroy the enemy hero. I've already lost to this card, by the way.
Oh my god.
So I had my opponent who's a Warlock play Mechathon, and then next turn play Cataclysm.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's fair. Cataclysm will destroy all the minions, and it'll destroy your hand. It doesn't destroy your deck, though.
Yeah, but he's playing Warlock, so he just like didn't have a deck anymore.
That'll do it. Wow, Cataclysm.
Yeah, I know, that was really funny. I was happy to lose to that. But I think that's not super duper reliable because I think, Warlock is pretty decent at surviving, but it doesn't have the best survivability of all the classes. Also, you have to like untap with the Death Rattle minion and not have it silenced and all that stuff. So like that's a pretty easily interruptible combo. That's kind of a day one combo that works before people respect it. However, there's one class that could actually just do this from hand and survive to get there and very easily draw its entire deck, and that's Druid. So if you have this Naturalize and Innervate in your hand, you can just kill your opponent from hand. And if you run a deck that has like Biology Projects and Nourish and maybe even Ultimate Infestation and like Gadgets and Auctioneer, you can pretty easily draw your entire deck.
Deals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess you're right. Mechathon wants a deck that's just really, really good at drawing their entire deck, stopping their opponent from doing stuff, getting armor, and getting to 10 mana.
Yeah, there's some.
Druid is so good at all those things. Druid is the best at every single thing I just said. And then they also have the Innervate and Naturalize, which is like the only way that's not completely ridiculous of triggering it.
Yeah,
in one turn.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't think I like. Yeah, every other way, I think you would have to have the coin and something else.
Yeah, and Druid just like has coin as a card in its class. So like.
Oh man. Wait, was your opponent? Oh no, your opponent was playing Warlock. Yeah, that sounds like a really fun time. Let's play OTK Mechathon Druid.
Yeah, sure. So this is like, but I mean, this is a perfect auctioneer deck. Like this is the kind of deck where you don't want to have UI stuck in your hand, but you definitely want to draw your whole decks. And Druid is like already one of the best auctioneer classes. It's just you never played auctioneer because you have like the best spell in Hearthstone. So
yeah, I see what you're saying. I forgot that you have to have an empty hand.
Yeah, so that makes it harder. But I mean, with cards like Biology Project and Ferocious Howl and like Branching Paths and all this stuff, like your auctioneer is just great.
Yeah, I see what you're saying though. Like at first I was like, why do we use auctioneer? Let's just play Ultimate Infestation. But you don't want 10 mana spells in the deck that's trying to empty its hand and play a 10 mana minion.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But you could just play just the cheap ones,
right?
And just top it off at like Nourish, and you're good to go with auctioneer.
Totally, yeah. Druid just happens to be a class that like has tons of cheap spells,
and you'll be gaining armor, so you can probably use Lesser Jasper Spellstones upgraded once to kill your auctioneer when you finally have drawn your whole deck.
Yeah, trade it into one of your opponent's minions. There's like a lot of ways that deck can work out. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it seems cool. Doubtfully better than Malagos, but still awesome. So I figured that would make it worth talking about.
Yeah. I didn't think there was like anything going on for that card. Your
Yeah,
point about Druid gives me a lot more belief it could be something.
it seems silly. I haven't played with or against the Druid deck yet, and I don't know like if people are theory crafting it, what the state of it is. But it seems doable, and it's like kind of one of the things I thought of when I saw Biology Project was Auctioneer. It's just that Auctioneer hasn't been relevant with Ultimate Infestation, though when a rotation happens, it will be. So keep that one in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Assuming Biology Project still does the same thing when that happens.
Seems not like something you should count on.
Yeah, I would. I think there are cards that are a lot more likely to keep the same effect through that duration than Biology Project.
R&D might need to take that one back to the lab.
Yeah, for sure. So as for the last card, it's kind of tough. I think there's a lot of really interesting ones here. One that I thought about but ultimately didn't go with was Augmented Elk. So this is 3 mana 3/4. Whenever you shuffle a card into your deck, shuffle an extra copy. It's a beast. That's fine. 3 mana 3/4 beast is something interesting. The effect is unique, but like doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, it is a beast, 3 mana 3/4. So, it's not one thing that's nice about it. It doesn't say if you would shuffle a card in twice, because that like wouldn't you couldn't like duplicate that. Like if you had 2 Elix, it wouldn't do anything extra.
Oh, sure.
The fact that it's not like Bran where it specifically says twice and it's just an extra one is great. And I'm pretty sure that also means that if you use Falderai Strider, you would get 6 spider ambushes instead of 3, right?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure, but that's definitely worth looking into.
Let me read the card again. But that's where I see Augmented Elec being realistically good. Obviously,
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna play turn 10 Augmented Elec and then Archbishop Benedictus, and oh my god, I got 2 copies of your deck in my deck, and then they'll lose, but it'll be cool. But in just like Miracle Rogue, they're pretty happy to get like a well-statted minion. Now right now the 3 slot is surprisingly clogged up by the Hench Clan Thug, which is an amazing card in Miracle Rogue. But if you needed more minions, you could add in Augmented Elec, and if you play it turn 3, your opponent like has to kill that. Like if they leave the Elec out and then you turn 4 Strider, that's gotta be rough.
And I mean, while we're on the subject of Rogue, I guess this card's worth going with then. So I was going to mention Ziliax, but like we already talked about War Gear, and it's kind of the same thing. So Augmented Elec. This goes well with the 2 mana 3/2, right? So the one that shuffles cards into your deck.
Yeah.
It kind of repeats that effect. This is also a thing with Elise. You shuffle in 2 packs, and that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of places where this sort of effect, triggers and does something interesting. It's not statted. Like a lot of the times when you shuffle something into your deck, you're playing a deck that can go long and eventually draw it. And Augmented Elec doesn't really have like the body or the type of. It's not really the type of card to support that. This is more of a mid-range or aggressive type card, but it's also a beast, a 3 mana 3/4 beast. So I think that bodes well if you want to do something aggressive, because you can just play this with Crackling Razor Maw and hit your opponent's face.
Or you could Dire Frenzy it.
What does Dire Frenzy do?
Good. That's the right answer. For one, you already passed the test. It's 4 mana. It's not even a new card. It's from Witchwood. 4 mana. Give a beast +3/+3, and shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck.
Oh, that card's so bad. Yeah, you can hit Augmented Elec with that. Oh man, and you just shuffle an extra copy. That's broken.
I just put
my God.
6/7s into my deck. And this is like, cool, you did exactly 0 to the board.
Right? Yeah, and you just lose. Like, alright, kill you.
Like, cool. So that's fun. That's a neat thing. I agree that Elec is a very interesting card, and I think that because of its stats, it could just kind of work in Miracle Rogue. It might actually see play there too.
Yeah, so I think that's where it's worth mentioning because it's sort of a unique effect. No, we've seen effects like this before, and this one seems like you have to actually work pretty hard to make it amazing. But yeah, a deck like Miracle Rogue gives it legs because you have 2 really nice options in that deck. And actually, I mean, if you're running Augmented Elec and you're doing the stupid bunny thing, like, it's actually good in that deck.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Alec also gives you extra Kingsbanes.
Oh boy, that's what we need.
Or
I mean,
Kingslayer? Yeah, it's Kingsbane, right? Yeah.
it's Kingsbane. I mean, that's actually like fine though.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that saves you if you get like two of them in your hand, then that's just like having another shiny finder in your deck. So that's
Y-
pretty cool.
Yeah, so you just get the Slayer or Kingsbane to 1 durability, and then play the Alec that turn and attack with it.
Yep, that's interesting. So all right, Rogue likes this card.
Yeah, that's cool. I also I like to give a shout out to Replicating Menace just because I didn't get to talk about any neutral magnetic minions, but this is a 4 mana 3/1 mech with magnetic and Death Rattle summon 3/1/1 microbots. So once again, like the amount of minions you get for one card is crazy. A 4 mana 3/1 is not very good. A 3 mana 3/1 is still bad, but
Yeah.
it's a mech, so you can magnetic it. Like if you play Replicating Menace, your opponent won't want to kill it because it'll give you a bunch of 1/1s. So then you'll have a mech next turn to play War Gear on. Or your opponent does kill it, and then you get 3 mechs. Because once
Yeah.
again, it's summoning mechs. So this is 4 mechs in 1, which sounds like it could be really, really strong. And then it itself, in addition to being a great magnetic target, providing 3 more good magnetic targets, it has magnetic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think the fact that it's like so this reminds me of Egg Napper, but that card was like fringe playable. I think it was like
Mhm.
pretty close. It was a really good arena card, and it was very close to constructed levels. Um, this is similar to that, but the fact that it has magnetic is like nice.
It's so good. If you have just like a 1/1 out, you can immediately make it into a 4/2 and trade into something and get 3 1/1s.
Yeah, that's fine.
It can, like a big problem with it would have been its inability to impact the board, but magnetic means you can immediately impact the board. You can pump your mechanical whelp. You can. There seems to be a lot of really easy ways to get tiny, annoying mechs, and this is not only synergistic with it, it also does that.
Yeah.
So it seems like it could also be a very important tool in the mech magnetic deck, and particularly if that's a thing in Rogue or Hunter, right? Because they trigger minions' death rattles. So if you play a Mecharoo, which is a 1/1 death rattle, summon a 1/1, and then you magnetize it with Replicating Menace, and then you play your Fireworks tech, you'll get 4 1/1s.
Sure. Yeah, I mean it seems good. That's interesting. I didn't even really look at this card, but definitely seems like it does a bit better than what it looks like on its face when you consider magnetic. Yeah, magnetic's really interesting. It's super cool design.
I love it.
Yeah, I really can't wait to see how it plays out.
And War Gear has a little clunk to it. Like if you invest 5 mana and a whole card into your minion, your opponent has a removal. That's that could really suck if you didn't get enough of an attack in. But Replicating Menace is a little less of an investment, 4 instead of 5, and you got that Death Rattle to hedge your bets. And usually, no matter what the minion is, if you give it +3/+1, it's suddenly going to be pretty scary.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think that some decks might want War Gear, but I think some will probably also want Replicating Menace, and that it'll just serve it'll just work really well because it either is the enchantment or gets enchanted much more effectively than War Gear does. War Gear doesn't get magnetized very well because if you just play a 5 mana 5/5, your opponent's probably going to kill it.
Yeah, for sure. But this one is like pretty decent. Also, they're not super incentivized to kill it. It's just nice. Yeah, but that's so that is Boomsday.
Dude, I really want to open the rest of my packs right now.
Well, I guess you have the opportunity to do so. And while you're doing that, our listeners can check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/lastturnhs or facebook.com/lastturnhs. You can also go to lastturnhs.com and find links to all of our stuff, which includes stuff like YouTube. We have Last Turn HS, our YouTube channel. We're also on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, all kinds of places on the internet where you can come and listen to us. You're probably listening to us on a place on the internet right now. So keep doing that. But yeah, I mean, we hope that you guys are not committing arson in real life, but are definitely blowing up lots of stuff in Hearthstone.
Yes, we would love to hear back from you about our review. If you think we're completely wrong about some stuff, which you probably do, you should let us know on Twitter and Facebook and that kind of stuff. We also are on Instagram at Last
That's
Turn
true.
HS. Or if you agree with us, I don't even know why I'm mentioning that as a possibility. You can join us in the hype. If you've thought of any cool combos that we missed or something like that, please point them out.
Yeah, this is I mean, there's a so I checked after you mentioned the upgradable frame bot, and there's literally one vanilla minion in this entire set. So there's a lot of room for silly stuff to happen.
Yeah, this is I would, if I had to give an overall broad assessment of the Boomsday project, I'd say that the card quality is really high, possibly the highest of any set ever. There seems to be way more really good neutral minions than other sets.
Yes.
In particular. This might be a little bit of a Kaladesh on our hands. We'll see. We might have a little bit of a Kaladesh thing going on. That's a set in Magic that was based on mechs, essentially, and was also really high power, and a lot of cards got banned from it.
Yeah, that's potentially something we can talk about as strong neutrals that might end up being relevant here. I think we've mentioned it in the past with like Corridor Creeper and patches and stuff. But, you know, when you have cards that every deck has access to that are really strong, you can end up in some oppressive situations. Alternatively, you just make Druid the best class.
Like, what do we do? Let's just make Druid beat everything. That should. Yeah. Then we'll know what to nerf in a few months.
Yeah, exactly. They make their job easy by just making Druid really strong. They've done it before. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, I mean, who knows? I don't want to be a pessimist. I'm mostly just kidding. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So we will catch you guys next turn.
Thanks for joining us, folks. See you next turn.